Hello everyone. We would like to ask you a question today that will help you and your loved ones thrive. And that question is, what is the most important thing to you? Maybe it's having your loved ones healthy, thriving, and happy. Is there anything in the world more important than the survival of your loved ones? While many things are important, if you ask people from all over the world, this is the most important to most of us. What are you willing to be, have, and do in order to ensure the survival and safety of your family? Probably just about anything. What we do at any given moment will affect the next moment. Our goal here is to help all of our loved ones thrive as much as possible. This diagram, known as the delightful dozen, shows what things must happen first for everything else to happen. If we start at the center with wisdom, this wisdom applies to every other area. This wheel shows you how to be prepared for challenges similar to how you would read an old-time clock, starting at the upper right and going around clockwise. You start with being safe and protected, make sure that everyone's breathing well, and that everyone can maintain their core temperature around 99 degrees Fahrenheit. You then make sure everyone is hydrated and healthy as possible. From here, there are many things that matter, and it depends on your situation. Typically, the most important skills are leadership, discernment, and being able to create whatever is needed as it's needed. We will do a whole video on skills and abilities that it takes to thrive, but this video is about the fastest, easiest way to get started today. Typically, the most important resources are time, energy, and information. What information you need depends on what you're wanting to be, have, and do. You also need the tools and equipment in order to have it happen. You then need to exchange those things for things that you don't have in the form of barter or wealth. Cash, credit, and consumables is a slogan that's used and is often what people think of as far as what's valuable and what you can trade easily. And we've compiled a list of things that we have found to be most valuable in a barter situation. Once all these things are in place, it's typically about continuing to maintain optimal health and have the best nutrition. This pattern repeats itself every day unless something challenges us and we are no longer safe. Then we use the same order of priorities in a different location and transport our loved ones and belongings to a safer space. This is the art of transportation and navigation. Once we arrive in the new space, the order of priorities continue in that same order again, over and over. There's a teaching called the Rule of Threes that shows the order of importance of things in life. 3 seconds without safety, because really survival is required 24 hours a day. 3 minutes without air. Oxygen is our highest priority and our continued ability to breathe it. 3 hours without shelter. Core temperature always has to stay above the 90s for us to be able to function and stay alive. 3 days without water. Hydration allows you to maintain whatever you're doing indefinitely. 3 weeks without food. Basic nutrition is required, and the more nutrition you have, the longer you can go. And 3 months without community. We need connection. We're social creatures, and the more community and support we have, the easier it is to maintain all of these things. When learning the order of priority to prepare our loved ones for any challenge, one of the best places to start is in the center. In the center of this wheel is the most proven way to achieve that: wisdom. What wisdom could you bring now? If we look at who are the wisest beings on the earth, there could be many people named, many animals, maybe even plants and spirits. If you look at what type of wisdom you have, notice, is it the type that's universal and applied everywhere, or is it specific to your situation? Because many different cultures around the world have their own types of wisdom, and when they're shared, create a wisdom that we can all benefit from. If you look at which cultures worship certain animals more than others, you'll find that many cultures around the world use owls as a symbol of wisdom. And we are sharing our wisdom compiled from many tribes in order to create the greatest results for you and your loved ones. Some say it's dolphins, and many stories have been written about the wisdom of dolphins helping people out in many different situations. There's also the wisdom of different people, such as St. Francis, who has helped many millions of people over the centuries. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love, for it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. Wayne Dyer's teachings still resonate today, even though he's not with us anymore physically. This symbol, called the flower of life, has been found at nearly every major holy center of the world and is made up of circles connected by circles in their centers. If you wanted to create a painting and had access to every single color you could paint anything if you could find the right materials and the right things to paint on. And if you could do that in any direction of a wheel, you would have a complete system. You would be able to paint any painting anywhere. Our intention here is to give you as complete of a system as possible within the limitations of a video. In ancient China, it was often taught that everything comes from emptiness or the great void, and that the first thing created is something and its opposite, sometimes called polarities. For example, hot and cold, big and small, fast and slow, simple and complex. The list goes on and on. The quiet, still, soft, dark side of things was called Ying, while the loud, fast, hard, and bright things were called Yang. If you put these together, you find balance between them. The yin and yang symbol is a good way to symbolize life in that it is a full circle made up of different parts. If we were to take our life and break it into different areas to make it more useful to see smaller pieces, this circle has been used for thousands of years in China to align things and is known as feng shui, or the flow of wind and water. In any situation, air and water are two of the most important things necessary for survival. We call these 9 areas of life the 9 stars, or the Jiu Xing in Chinese. In the center is always health and survival itself, and once that's accomplished, there are 8 areas of life to choose from in this system, and often we start in the eastern section where the sun rises every morning. That area is known as the basics, or the home. Each of these areas is important, and while health is a 24-hour-a-day priority, the other areas are often thought of as being mixed together so that there's a balance. An example could be doing each area around 3 hours a day so that you create balance in your life. It might be helpful to pause for a moment here and notice which area of your life to focus on today. This diagram shows the same system in the form of a mind map so that it can be connected to our digital world and create value all day and all night, even while we're sleeping. The art of feng shui is the flow of life. This pyramid is known as Maslow's hierarchy of needs and shows which things must happen first in order for the other things to be realized. This is a simplified version of that, and we use it to make it easier for people of all ages to understand. When it comes to protection and safety, one way to create safety is to fly above everything and never let it harm you. Yet that's not always possible to do, and even eagles need to land and rest part of the time. The strongest geometric shape is a circle, and circles of people have been protecting each other since there have been people. This is known as the circle of protection, and if used like a clock, it has the same pattern as our original diagram that we call the delightful dozen areas of preparedness. And this shows you what to focus on when you're in a situation that is harmful or dangerous or threatening, and starts with the least amount of harm up to what would cause you to be fully protected no matter what. It starts with situational awareness. In every challenging or dangerous situation, we start with awareness of the situation itself. If someone becomes skilled enough in awareness, the other areas may not be necessary. If you find yourself presented with something harmful, sometimes just working it out verbally can be enough. Oftentimes, in a dangerous situation, just creating noise will attract attention to the threat, and the threat will diminish or even disappear completely. If it escalates to something more serious, there are a wide variety of repellents that can be used that are non-lethal, and we suggest starting here whenever possible. If that escalates into something more serious, then self-defense, blocking, and retreat are typically the best options. If for some reason that's not possible, then having some sort of object to defend yourself with becomes the next level. Sometimes it is necessary to go beyond martial techniques and use an impact weapon. If this is not effective, it may become necessary to move to a higher level of protection, and we will not go into all of that here, as this is devoted to just taking care of the minimal basics and the smallest, simplest ways you can have safety and protection. It would likely involve blades, handheld weapons, longer range weapons, and if it was a full-on conflict, would eventually likely escalate to involve explosives of various sorts. Our intention here is not to scare you. It's to have you prepared to be, have, and do whatever it takes to make sure that you and your loved ones continue living. We have done entire trainings on safety and protection, and you are welcome to study those arts as much as is aligned for you and your loved ones. This video is intended to give you all dozen areas of preparedness simply and easily so that you can apply them today. Assuming you are relatively safe and there's no imminent danger, the most important thing is always air and breathing. There are many great breathing techniques, and you can discover a number of different options depending on what type of breathing you need for a given situation. If necessary, we suggest carrying a face covering and a bottle of water everywhere you go to soak the mask if necessary, just in case the air becomes compromised with smoke, dust, or other things that could challenge your ability to breathe. The next area is shelter, and begins with basic clothing for the body and protection for the head, eyes, hands, and feet. The most basic form of shelter is our clothing, and being dressed appropriately for the conditions is always important. While training people for earthquakes over the years, we learned that one of the most useful things to have is a good pair of boots stored underneath where you sleep, because one of the most common injuries after an earthquake is getting cut from stepping on the broken glass that the earthquake caused. And many people have serious injuries that can be prevented just from having a pair of boots within reach. One of the most basic shelters that can be constructed in less than a minute is made of a heavy-duty plastic bag combined with a lit candle. It can be adjusted more open and more closed to have more or less airflow depending on the conditions. But even in Arctic conditions, even in sub-zero weather, it can be very effective to help you make it through a difficult night. It can also be made into various types of shelter with simple duct tape and zip ties There are many configurations of using a plastic bag that can allow you to walk under it, sit under it, even cook, run a normal life under it if necessary. And with a simple minimum amount of sticks, branches, poles, ties, fasteners, there are many combinations of these that can lead to very interesting and innovative shelters that take very little time and energy to create. Next is having something to insulate you from below and above. If a heat reflective shield is added, it can perform even better. And there is a whole system called super shelters created by Mors Kohansky that is worth learning about and learning how to actually apply this in everyday situations can increase your chances of having a great camping trip, having a better time when you go outdoors, even if you're never in a survival situation. Combining this into a single layer saves weight and bulk, and these type of super reflective tarps are some of the best things you can carry in your kit if you want to be prepared for anything. A simple layer of insulation around you, whether natural or synthetic, ensures that you can survive any conditions no matter how cold, as long as you stay dry. If you have access to poles such as bamboo, a variety of shelters can be constructed. It is useful to practice many different types of structures in scale model form first, so that you can work out all the issues before you have to do it in life-size materials. Some of the most advanced and useful structures ever built use basic geometry and are fun to explore. Even in urban situations, it is possible to create shelters out of materials that exist readily every day that can be enclosed to protect you from all directions. With today's modern materials and the ability to use 3D design tools, a variety of amazing and innovative shelters have been created that are safe, warm, and cost-effective. Cultures all around the world have been sleeping up above the ground in hammocks to stay warm at night for thousands of years. Even a simple backpacking tent can provide shelter long-term with a minimum of effort. Heated shelters, while requiring more design and care to maintain, have been around for thousands of years and are very effective at staying comfortable all year long. Some of the most advanced shelters that can withstand strong storms combine the strongest form of a circle on the ground with a cone structure on top to allow the storm to blow right over it. Simple canoe camping offers a way to practice the various arts of shelter in a variety of situations, not only survival, but learning how to thrive and enjoy the outdoors at the same time. Very simple cabins made of wood have sheltered many people. Modern cabins add cement foundations and all the modern conveniences to the simplicity of a basic cabin. For people who are interested in building their first home and keeping it relatively cost-effective and easy to maintain, a tiny home may be the way to go. Tiny homes are quick, efficient, useful, and very cost-effective, especially if the materials used are recycled or reused. Homes can be constructed for entire families that allow people to live their entire lives in one area. The same basic principles apply whether in an urban or a rural environment, and there are many combinations of urban and rural design that allow you to customize your shelter for any size group or any challenges you may face. The goal here is not only safety, but your ability to maintain your core temperature of 90 degrees consistently. Having enough energy is one of the most important resources to be, have, or do anything, whether it be spiritual energy, the will to live, light, heat, or magnetism. The most common forms of energy for us are usually sunlight, fire, and electricity. Even on a cloudy day, the sun is always shining. It just may not reach us, which is why the art of fire making is so important. There are many forms of gathering heat, whether through exercise, insulation, or building a fire out of various fuels. One system commonly used to understand energy is the 7 chakras of the body, also known as the wheels of the body. Energy fields surrounding the body, called auric fields, extend out from our center. Many of these different types of energy fields have been measured with Kirlian photography, and it's quite interesting to learn about how energy flows back and forth in the different areas of our life. While we cannot physically see magnetism with our eyes, we can see its effects on metal shavings. And here, even though we can't see the magnetism holding these magnets together, it's possible to experience it by pulling them apart and watching them snap back together. One of the most common forms of energy that we use every day is electricity, and the batteries that allow us to store it for later use. One helpful way to prepare for challenges is to take all of your electronic devices and see if you can get them to run off of the minimum types of batteries. For example, you can see if every device might end up only needing AA or AAA batteries. Solar panels have become more and more powerful over the years and are a great way to create electricity whenever there is sunshine. Signal mirrors can be used to reflect light into dark areas even when the sun is not shining directly on that spot. We have many times reflected light from the sun to light up an interior that had no electricity for a good part of the day. There are many different forms of light, and in today's world, LEDs have taken over and are able to give us a great deal of light for very little amounts of electricity being used. One of the best ways to light a situation is to wear a headlamp so that your hands are free to work on whatever tasks are needed. Simple lamps have lit the world for thousands of years and still continue to work well. Modern combinations of high-efficiency lighting, along with glow-in-the-dark crystals, have made it possible to have light for much longer without using very much power. Glow-in-the-dark technologies allow us to have light all night long while using a minimum of energy. Candles have long been an easy source of light and heat. Fatwood is the heartwood of pine trees and is saturated with resins and is extremely flammable and available widely. A pencil sharpener is a great way to have tinder all the time for a fire because you can go almost anywhere in the world and find small twigs and branches and just shave them like a pencil and have a quick pile of shavings to use to start your fire. There are many materials that are flammable and still relatively safe if used wisely. This is magnesium, which can burn even underwater. One of the easiest ways to create hundreds of fires is to carry a rod made of ferrocerium and have a simple striker to use with it over and over. In conditions where there is relatively low wind, the fastest, easiest way to start a fire is usually just with a waterproof lighter. One of the most sustainable ways to keep fire going is with a magnifying glass. Anytime you have sunshine, you can use the glass over and over and it will never wear out. Small cooking fires made of natural materials have warmed and fed us for millennia. A modern pocket stove is a great way to have warm liquids to drink, which combines two of the top priorities of heat and hydration at the same time. There are many types of artificial fuels that can be used if there are no natural materials available for some reason. This is a multi-fuel stove that can heat up a can of something very quick and easy and weighs only ounces. This type of camping stove has been around for a long time and is easy to transport and use for many years. Modern stoves have taken the best of a variety of technologies and made it possible to boil water in a matter of minutes, even when it's cold outside. There are many types of pans available for cooking, and the classic cast iron skillet has fed thousands of families throughout history. One of the easiest ways to cook food and keep it warm is with the use of tinfoil. Foil-insulated containers called cozies are great for keeping food warm, even in winter conditions. A good pair of gloves offers protection from hot things. After safety, air, and core temperature has been taken care of, next comes water. Staying hydrated and having access to clean water ensures that you and your loved ones can survive on an ongoing basis. Water storage containers come in almost any size needed. A classic way to carry water is with a simple 5-gallon bucket. Tainted water often has the opposite effect of losing water from you because you become sick. So it's important to make sure that you always have a way to filter it and to purify it. If all of these necessities have been met, the next area is health and medicine, to make sure that you not only survive, that you thrive as well. Of all the emotions we experience, gratitude is one of the most powerful and transformative. Decision-making often comes down to a simple question: to be or not to be? Now that you are all safe, breathing well, sheltered, and maintaining your core temperature, the art of triage is knowing where to start and what's next. When decision-making is distilled into its simplest form, it makes a simple matrix like this. Look at what's most important and what's not important. Look at what needs to be done right away and what can wait till later. In many situations in life, deciding whether to do something or not can waste a lot of precious time. It's often easier to ask, what is the risk and the reward? How much and how often should we do that thing? For example, if it's something that's really likely to happen, and it's very serious if it's not taken care of, that's what comes first. Then you look at what's next most likely or next most serious and work your way down in descending order. If you notice, there's things that are very unlikely and wouldn't really matter if they happened, and those are things that are not worth spending any time on. So this entire matrix is built to decide what needs to come first, what do we do next, and what is everything else that we don't need to worry about. This is an effective tool for deciding what to do in any given situation. This is a classic flowchart, how to perform triage in a medical situation. Quite often, when people are screaming or yelling or having a really hard time, they actually will come second. It's the ones who are silent that have to come first because they need the most help. They're actually in a life-threatening situation. And so when you're actually doing medical triage, there's a lot of emotions involved, and it's very difficult and challenging. So it's good to have a chart or a diagram or something to refer back to when things are getting a little bit out of hand at times. The possibilities are endless. When faced with a lot of different challenges in front of you at the same time, it's important to take the most serious ones first that you can create the most value for, work on the next ones that you can create value for, and the ones that you're not going to be able to create any value for, you're going to have to learn how to let go of them. In a classic triage situation, there's the ones we can treat first, who's next, and the other ones we just have to send blessings to. Dave Canterbury created a great system called the 10 C's based on the order of survival priorities. First, you want to be able to cut things. Then you want to be able to light them on fire and make heat. You want to have a container to store things in. You want to be able to cover yourself and your belongings. You want to have cordage to be able to connect things together. You want to use a cotton bandana for a whole variety of things, especially air and basic shelter and the ones that are the most important. You want to use a compass to figure out what direction to go, a candle to light the way and give you heat, cargo tape to repair anything, also known as duct tape, and a cloth needle so that you can sew up and repair things that have become torn or broken. And these 10 C's are very valuable. They're good to practice, they're good to get out and test, they're good to try different scenarios with and see which ones you actually find most important and which ones you need the most often. As a tribute to Dave, we have created another 10 C's, and we call this entire list the 20 C's of survival. We love Dave's list, and it's amazing how much value he's created with such a simple piece of technology. Our intention is to now extend that and take it further and have everyone thriving as well. We look at it as, what do you need to connect to? What is most important for connection? Is it the truth? Is it honesty? Is it integrity? We look at it as connection to some sort of higher power or trusted source, something that will give you the wisdom to know what to do next. Clean water, always being able to stay hydrated. Correct clothing, so that you have your basic shelter and insulation needs and can maintain your core temperature in any type of weather. Clear and compelling vision. This is one of the most important things when it comes to surviving a difficult situation, especially if loved ones are involved who are elderly or young. because giving them the motivation and inspiration to continue on is the quality of a good leader that is probably the key to helping the entire group get through it. Conserving your energy and using as little wasted movement and wasted resources as possible will allow you to then have them to use on things that are important. So if you look at any wild animal in the world, 9 times out of 10, they use the minimum amount of energy, do the things that are easiest, and save their energy for when they need it, because when they need it, they'll really need it. Consuming nutrition, figuring out what the most powerful forms of nutrition are, the superfoods, the highest density nutrition you can get for the amount of time and energy it takes to get them, and consuming that regularly so that you have optimal health. Building community. One of the fastest ways to get anything done is to collaborate with others who are experts at it. Creating consistent revenue so that you constantly have a stream of income, both in the form of wealth and money and in the form of barter and exchange goods and the ability to trade, and constantly having value coming in even while you're sleeping. Because sometimes when situations get challenging, it's impossible to stay up 24 hours a day and deal with all of them. So it's great to be able to have 8 to 10 hours of rest and still be able to bring in value and wealth while you're sleeping. A clear plan is another key part of the system, which says, what would you do if this happened for one day? What would you do if this type of thing happened and it was more like 3 days? It was a bigger emergency. What if it was an entire week and you had to take care of things for a week? Would you know what to do? Maybe practice it now while you still have a chance to get different scenarios, get different teachings, help yourself figure out what you would do in these different situations and then test them out. Or maybe it's even a couple weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Or maybe it's an entire month. What we've been through recently has shown us that having a 1-day plan, a 3-day plan, a 1-week plan, a 1-month plan are all great. Maybe you need to actually go to a 1-year plan. What are you going to do for an entire year if everything that you assumed was going to be the way it is, isn't? What would you do if it went on for 2 or 3 years? So we could even take this out to a 5-year plan. The idea here is to give yourself scenarios of simple things that you can practice now while you still have time to practice them. And finally, clear communication allows us to send and receive wisdom and knowledge to each other so that we can lower our thresholds of being able to actually have these things happen, to be able to actually decrease our learning curves on some of these items and situations and scenarios, and ultimately to give and receive our best. Once triage has been performed and the priorities have been established, following the ABCs of first aid gives an effective treatment plan. So triage, again, is what you must do. We call that STAT. What's next, also known as critical, and what's everything else. And that's the idea of stabilizing someone and getting them to where we can maintain homeostasis. Now, when you've got that happening, you want to look at how to help someone from head to toe typically. So we use what we call the ABCs of first aid. Airway, breathing, and circulation has been taught for many years and is a very common teaching. Nowadays, it's been extended to the A, B, C, D, E, F, and you could even take it to the whole alphabet if you wanted to get creative. But the idea is, what's the next most dangerous thing after airway, breathing, and circulation? What's the biggest health threat or challenge? What are any other emergencies that are going on that aren't health-related necessarily, but are going to be needing to get looked at quickly? And what sort of first aid can you give for what's going on? So again, airway, breathing, and circulation, danger, emergencies, and first aid. And this walks us down the head to toe of a person who's got challenges. And there's 2 basic forms that we typically remedy them with. One is called RICE, and that acronym is rest, ice, compression, and elevation. So if we're going to oversimplify things, certain issues are more improved by immobilization and others are improved by mobilization, which is known as MEAT. So immobilization is rest, ice, compression, and elevation. Mobilization is movement, exercise, analgesics, and treatment. To put these in more common terms, let someone lie down, put something cold on it so that it takes away the pain. put direct pressure on whatever is bleeding and make sure that you stop the bleeding and elevate it so that it is easier for the heart and the whole body. You don't go into shock and you slow the bleeding at the same time. Meat is about letting someone move around, stretch, get some exercise, something to take away their pain, and a treatment that will allow them to get fully functional again. This slide was created to look at the top challenges to prepare for anything that you may face. This actually deserves an entire video of its own, but if we start here to just give you the basics of it, the idea is to prepare you for anything, anytime, anywhere in the world. To summarize this, we start with the left-hand column and assess what sort of area you're in to begin with. We then go to the next column and assess what the environmental conditions are. Moving to the next column, we assess what situation is most important to look at first. And then we move to what your needs are that you have because of that. And finally, we look at the specific challenges that you're facing and the problems that it's producing and what's causing them so that we can begin to alleviate them as soon as possible. We suggest starting with the most common issues that we all experience every day and prepare for them while you still have time to practice. And then as you get better at it, you can move to higher and higher levels of challenge. There is a whole set of remedies for these various challenges depending on which health system you're using, and each one deserves its own study. This is organized alphabetically so that we don't show any preference to any system over another. There's modern medicine, known as allopathy. There's probably the most ancient medical system in the world, known as Ayurveda, or the science of life. There's Chinese medicine. There's chiropractic, chiro meaning hand, so using your hands to heal. There's energy medicine of all different types. That could be its own system just by itself, as all the different forms of energy medicine. There's homeopathy, where something cures itself or like cures like. So for example, we would take something like snake venom, take the snake venom, mix it with water, continuously do that, add in prayers, good intentions, healing energies of all different types, and keep doing that and taking a drop of that and adding it to more water and doing that again and again. And homeopathy eventually gets to where it has a great deal of energy imprint of the original substance, but none of the actual original substance. So when you take a snake venom homeopathically, there's no actual snake venom in it. Or, for example, when you take aconite, known as monkshood, it's a very great remedy for fear, but there's none of the actual aconite because aconite is poisonous. And so homeopathy can be used, traditional indigenous healings of all different types. So one of the favorites we have is traditional Hawaiian medicine, known as Huna. There's many different indigenous groups over the world that we've had a chance to receive their blessings, and so we could go into all different types of indigenous medicines, but we're just going to summarize it to say all the indigenous people of the world, which really all of us are indigenous to the earth, but some practice more ancient practices than others. There's Native American here in North America, South America. There's native tribes all over the world who have various wisdom, Aboriginal tribes in Australia. There's using nature of any kind, any plant or animal or any substance of nature, that's called naturopathy. And then there's bone medicine, and specifically a more advanced version of Western medicine that's specifically dealing with certain types of energies called osteopathy. And then there's Tibetan medicine, which is also very ancient, along with Ayurveda. And together, if you took all these world medicines and studied and practiced and took the best parts of each one, you get what we call integral medicine. One thing in common to all forms of healing systems is that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. This was an old expression used by Ben Franklin to basically teach people that anything you can do right now that's small and simple and easy will take care of something that's going to be large and difficult and harder later. So anything you can do to prevent something from happening will save you a lot of time and headache and pain and misery later if you ignore it. So looking at everything you can possibly work on, that's the intention of this whole video really, is to share with you everything you can possibly make better today so that you can have a better tomorrow. And so the idea would be if you can even spend 5 to 10 minutes on this every day, it can save you hours and weeks of stuff later. The art of healing combines physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual practices into an integral system if combined in a way that works complementary with each other. A full system would combine physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, relational, and financial healing into one integrated system. Oftentimes our actions are based on our feelings, and how you're feeling will guide how you perform. So getting really clear on what it is you're actually feeling in a given moment and being able to transform that feeling into something useful as quickly as possible is a great skill to have. So for example, if I'm feeling fear, where can I bring courage? If I'm feeling sadness, where can I bring joy and happiness? If I'm feeling anger, where can I feel kindness and love and compassion? So whatever you're feeling that's causing you to not get the results you want, you can then also look at its balanced or complementary feeling and bring that into the mix until you're actually feeling in a way where you can make it happen. So no matter what I'm feeling, I can always transform it into something more positive, more powerful, more useful, more helpful. And as you learn this art of transformation, you can continuously notice what you're feeling, honor it, feel it. There's an old saying that the best way to get over something is to go through it. So actually feeling it, letting yourself have a moment to feel it, and then moving on. This is a very common experience in the military because the trauma and the difficulties that we face every day are so overwhelming. Sometimes you just have to stop, process it, and be able to continue on. And if you don't process it, you'll actually not be able to function. So it's the ability to continuously process whatever's going on and continue being of value no matter what. Medicine wheels are often used to represent the various areas of your life so that you can see everything at once and make decisions on where to start. So it's like a map of your life where you can see the entire area, and now you can locate where you are, and you can see where you want to get to, and now you can see what the path is to get from here to there. One of the things we noticed in the military was that people would go out on expeditions and have all kinds of navigation issues. And during a training exercise one time, we took some of the top teams in the world and had them go on different navigations and route finding experiences, path finding experiences. And we came to find that there was one thing in common to all the teams who got lost. We had one team that even went out in search of one of the teams who got lost, and they got lost. And so this was a really valuable lesson. And we share it with you because this is a really helpful understanding of how to stay found and how to know where you are at all times in navigation. And this is when you know where you are to begin with, you will be able to find where you're going. But if you won't admit where you actually are at the moment, that's the easiest way to stay lost. And so this metaphor applies to everything in our life, including our feelings, including what we're looking at, including what we're deciding. Because when you get honest about where you're really at, you can get to where you want to go to. This is a scale of vibrational frequency and what we will typically experience at each level. Medicine wheels are often used to represent the various areas of your life so that you can see everything at once and make decisions on where to start and where you're going. So the easiest way to get where you want to go is to know where you are and where you're going and finding the path to get you there. Throughout the world, medicine wheels have guided people through challenging situations, and different wheels provide different results. One of the most ancient and advanced systems of health in the world is known as Ayurveda, the science of life. In this diagram, we see that there are three basic components of matter or material. In this diagram, we see that there are three basic components of Ayurveda, known as Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Vata is a combination of space and air. Pitta is a combination of fire and water. And Kapha is a combination of earth and water. In all medicine wheels, they represent the beliefs of that culture. And in Vedic culture, it was believed that there are 5 layers to life. The most basic layer, if we start from bottom to top, is the earth. As we move up the pattern, we get to water. As we move up again, we move to fire. As we go up higher, we move to air. And as we go up highest, we move to space. And so if you go from earth to water to fire to air to ether, these become the transformations that are possible whenever you work with the Ayurvedic system. Many people are told that they have too much stagnation or are stuck too much. They've become too solid. And so the idea is to add more water and air to heal their issues. So for example, if one was to sit down and look at what type you are, depending on if you're more Vata type, a Pitta type, or a Kapha type, we would recommend that particular type of healing system. We would recommend that particular diet, that particular set of things that would heal you the most, depending on what's called your dosha, one of the 3 types. The 3 doshas are Kapha, Pitta, and Vata. This is a 4 directions wheel based on many indigenous tribes around the world, and simplifies things to 4 directions, seasons, and areas of life. This medicine wheel is based on North American indigenous practices and honors medicines of sage, sweetgrass, willow, cottonwood, and other natural plants, along with the use of bones, shells, beads, feathers, furs, and other parts of animals that are considered sacred, and may involve a rug to pray with as well. This wheel combines ancient and modern wisdoms. This wheel of Chinese medicine is based on 5-element theory, and the year is divided into 5 parts rather than 4. Each element has a child below it and a parent above it. It also has a grandchild of the 2 below it and a grandparent of the 2 above it. So depending on which element you're in, there's always a parent and a grandparent above it, and there's a child and a grandchild below it. The 5 elements are very useful when looking at how to bring more balance into your life. This device, known as a lopan, is used by feng shui practitioners to calculate the elements, such as the stars, the sun, the moon, the earth. It maps out the seasons, tells what part of the zodiac you're in, and it organizes this all based on the magnetics of the earth. So it's actually a compass that's able to calculate many different things at once. These are the 12 meridians of the Chinese medicine system. These 12 meridians, if organized by 5-element theory, would be the liver and gallbladder are the wood elements, the heart and the small intestine are the fire elements, the spleen and stomach are the earth elements, the lung and large intestine are the metal elements, and the kidney and bladder are the water elements. And these are the basic 10 organs. Then if we look at the spaces around the body that actually make up the other 2 meridians, they're called the pericardium and the triple warmer. Some consider them fire, others might call them energy, which is something beyond the classic 5 elements. But however you look at it, these are the 12 basic meridians of the body. And then there's also the center of the body, and there's a channel that goes specifically around the center of the body, and we call that the conception vessel and governing vessel. This infographic shows where you can press on the body to locate what is happening in each meridian, known as the 12 pulses. This shows how to check the pulses on someone, and it can be done on yourself as well. It's very simple and easy. You simply take your first 3 fingers, find the crease of the wrist there right below where your hand bends, and you're going to push your 3 fingers down to the bone, and then you're going to slowly let up. And as you feel that bump of the pulse, you can notice how strong it is in each of the 3 areas. And then keep relaxing until you come all the way to the surface, and now you'll feel the surface pulse. And so just by pressing down to the bone and letting up, you can notice a variety of qualities in the pulses, But the basic one to start with is just how strong they are. Whether that pulse is weak or strong tells you whether to add or subtract energy from that meridian. All you do is take your index finger from your left hand, reach over to your right hand, and if you see where the white dot is, you would squeeze that and push it down to the bone, and that will show you your lung pulse. Then as you let up, you'll feel your large intestine pulse. Now you take your middle finger of your left hand and you squeeze down all the way to the bone, and you'll feel the spleen pulse. Lift up to feel the stomach pulse. Now your third finger of your left hand, you'll squeeze down to the bone to feel the pericardium. Lift up to feel the triple warmer, or the three cavities of the body. The upper cavity, the thoracic cavity, the middle cavity, the digestive system, and your pelvic cavity, your lower space of your body. So the three areas of your body that surround your organs. That's what they call the triple warmer. You're going to take your right hand now, you're going to reach over, and you're going to push down on the left wrist. You're going to push deep to feel the heart. Lift up to feel the small intestine. Press deep to feel the liver. Lift up to feel the gallbladder. Press deep to feel the kidney. And lift up to feel the bladder. And this is how you can tell what to do next in your life, because whichever pulse is strongest, you're going to want to calm it down. And whichever pulse is weakest, you're going to want to stimulate it. There are other techniques, such as looking at the tongue, especially the underneath of the tongue, noticing the different spots and areas on a person's face, looking at their eyes and seeing what's going on in the iris of the eye. There are maps of the face and the eye that can show you exactly what organs correspond to those areas. And then finally, one of the easiest is to look at the ears. The ears are very helpful because you can quickly tell from someone without being very invasive how they're doing. The issues that they're having currently will typically show up more red, and where there's been past issues will typically show up as pale. And so you can kind of get a quick read on what's going on with someone once you know the map of the body. Typically, we will examine a person's tongue while we're checking their pulse, and also notice other signs on their face and ear at the same time. Because in Chinese medicine, the intention is to start with curing, then spend time diagnosing and explaining why it happened. Speed and accuracy brings results more than sitting around and diagnosing and explaining why it's happening. We want to get the results of what we want them to experience as soon as we see them. This is a series of points that are great to do every day, and we call it the daily flow. They did hundreds of different point combinations over the years in different studies, and one study found that if you look at every single combination of points, these particular points create the greatest results and benefit for someone in the least amount of time. So you're going to reach up on your shoulder, and quite often when we give a neck massage, it's just natural to reach to this point anyway, but you start with this point called gallbladder 21, and then reach across with your opposite hand to this point. So if it's your right shoulder, reach across with your left hand and vice versa. So as you reach across with your hands on each of these points on your shoulder, you're going to pull them down across and make an X across your body and touch your hips on either side. So it's like you're pulling down from your shoulder and sliding to each opposite hip, forming an X pattern. And as you do this 5 to 10 times, you would then move to tapping underneath the eye at a point called stomach 1. Each of these points is good to do about 30 seconds. Then you're going to move to the top of your chest, right underneath your clavicle or your collarbone, kind of in the center of your chest, right underneath that on each side. So you're going to find an indentation underneath your collarbone on both sides. It's easy to go in there with your thumb and just kind of feel it to begin with. And then tap on that with either your thumb or your middle finger. And this is the master point of the immune system. This is called kidney 27. And once you've done this for 30 seconds or so, then we take the center of the chest and we tap on that. And right below that is the thymus gland. And there's a lot of reasons why this is such an amazing point. But this point will build courage, it'll build strength, it'll do a lot of things for you emotionally. And this is called conception vessel 17, also known as the Tarzan thump, or when you see some gorilla or something like that beating its chest. Now, to finish, we're going to move to a point called spleen 16, and this is if you find underneath your rib cage on the sides, find your rib cage and slide underneath it to where you find a soft point, kind of right at the corner. Go halfway between your midline of your sides and the midline of your front, almost like a 45-degree angle between the two. You'll find that point of spleen 16. That's great for blood issues and replenishing. And so these 5 points together make up the daily flow. Once you use these points, it finishes by putting one finger in your navel and one finger between your eyebrows and gently pulling up on both points at the same time. These are the most powerful points on the 12 meridians in picture form to make it easy to understand what they're associated with. So when you go to use them, you can picture what they're helping. The 12 points of the body to press and get the most result from that meridian are known as source points, and they're located here. The inside of the wrist, we have lung 9, pericardium 7, and heart 7. On the outside of the wrist, we have small intestine 4, triple warmer 4, and large intestine 4. On the inside of the foot, we have kidney 3, spleen 3, and liver 3. And on the outside of the foot, we have gallbladder 40, bladder 64, and stomach 42. Even touching these points for 10 to 20 seconds each can help improve your health greatly every day. Typically, if you only have 2 points to use, you're going to use large intestine 4, seen there on the hand in white, and you're going to use liver 3, seen on the foot in green. If you have time to do all 12 points, an easy way to do the source points every day is to use 5-element theory to guide the pattern. That would mean starting with the metal points, lung 9 and large intestine 4, the white dot on the hand. Then we would move to spleen 3 and stomach 42 for the earth meridians. You'll see those as the yellow dots on the feet. Then we would move to the fire meridians, heart 7 and small intestine 4, which you'll see as red dots on the hand. Then we would move to the wood element, liver 3 and gallbladder 40 on the feet. Then we would move to kidney 3 and bladder 64 for the water element. And finally, since those 5 elements are now finished with those pairs, we would go to the 6th pair, which some consider fire as well. We like to think of it as energy because it's almost like its own system. But that fire energy meridian, based on the spaces of the body, called the pericardium 7 and the triple warmer 4 points that you see there on the hand in orange. Almost all of these flows we finish with the center points, the conception vessel, and the third eye point known as conception vessel 6, one finger under the navel, and where the eyebrows meet above the nose, covering vessel 24.5, and that's the third eye point between the eyebrows. And by holding those 2 centering points, you allow yourself to return to center no matter where you're working on the body. It's important to always return to center. The 12 meridians also pass through the back in between the ribs and the spine, known as the shoe points. And you can test where someone has an imbalance by pushing each one of these points and noticing where they're sensitive. And this will help guide your healing as well. On the back of the body, we have the 12 meridians represented as well in a vertical pattern up and down the spine. And each one corresponds with a different meridian. So if you start at the top of the spine and go to place just off the spine, and that muscle right next to the spine on each side, you can locate these points. And the top one will be for the lung. These are all bladder points. So bladder 13 is lung, bladder 14 is pericardium, bladder 15 is for the heart, bladder 18 is for the liver, bladder 19 is for the gallbladder, bladder 20 is for the spleen, bladder 21 is for the stomach, bladder 22 is for the triple warmer, bladder 23 is for the kidney, bladder 25 is for the large intestine, bladder 27 is small intestine, and bladder 28 itself is the bladder. So if you're to look at someone and try and figure out what's going on with them, and for some reason you couldn't check their wrist pulses, you can have them lie face down and just touch these spots on their back, and they'll be sensitive in the area where they're having the issue. So again, you would go to the top of the spine, just off the side of it, and you would press in there until you feel the soft spot between the ribs. And if you start at the top, it's going to go from lung to pericardium to heart to liver to gallbladder to spleen to stomach to triple warmer to kidney to large intestine to small intestine to bladder. And these will help you see what to do next to help that person the most. This is an entire map of the acupressure points on a human body. Most systems around the world typically use between 300 and 400 points. 360 is a very common number that's used. And if you look at practitioners of China and Chinese medicine for thousands of years, if you look at all the writings and all the teachings and all the things that have been created, you'll start to notice a pattern where they say that there's even different ways of looking at it in different depths and different seasons, different times of year, all that. But quite often it's regularly agreed upon that there's actually over 2,000 specific points that can be used to benefit someone. Knowing where to press on the body to alleviate an issue can help improve someone's health greatly, very quickly, with minimal risk. Also, having some items with you for first aid is important as well. What you carry around with you every day is what you'll have to use, so it's best to find the most effective kit that is the lightest weight and smallest. It can be as simple as carrying bandages in your wallet, or you can go through first aid trainings, you can watch YouTube videos, you can learn from a variety of health practitioners a whole series of practices and treatments and things that can make things better, and get all the way up to having a fully stocked first aid kit in your backpack. It depends on what you believe you're going to experience, how much you want to help people, how interested you are in this, what you believe is actually going to happen, and how much health and abundance you want to bring your loved ones. For our group, we carry the minimum amount of kit possible to create as much health as we can. A typical example of a kit might look like this. There are many ways to help someone, and it depends on what you're facing, how often you see it. There's a lot of different variables to consider here. But if you were to say your loved ones' lives actually depend on your taking care of them with a well-stocked first aid kit, and your entire group is relying on this kit, these might be the contents of a fully stocked first aid kit. Bandages, especially ACE bandages and pressure bandages, often known as Israeli bandages or combat bandages. Various forms of gauze, different types of tape. Even duct tape is fine, but medical tape is often easier to reuse in situations and not take people's skin or hair with it. There's many types of tourniquets available. We recommend the cat tourniquet, the best tourniquets out there. The hemostats and the different ways to stop bleeding. Thousands of years ago, the general Achilles would issue yarrow to his men along with a sword and shield, and that's pretty much all they would carry. So it says a lot about how great yarrow is at blood stopping. There's a variety of hemostats you can use, yarrow being one of the best natural ones. There's suture kits that can allow you to repair somebody, an IV kit to hydrate them, water purification tablets. Many situations require dental issues, dental temporary fillings, a mirror, a quick dental kit, moleskin to relieve burning and blistering on the feet, or any area that's being chafed. Different types of patches, scissors, tweezers, different types of swabs for applying liquids, rubbing alcohol, variety of uses, antiseptics to keep things clean, different ointments and gels to relieve suffering, different types of homeopathic remedies, rescue remedy, Arnica montana, the calendula for open wounds, Arnica is best for closed wounds, aspirin, natural things like willow bark, vitamins, minerals, electrolytes, salt tablets, baking soda, different powders, sunscreen, lip balm, bug repellent, toilet paper, toothbrushes and paste and floss, soap and shampoo and hygiene items, deodorant, washcloth, towel, mirror, and a comb. This is if you're going to be ready for everything going on in health, and it was going to be for a large group. Now, realize you're not going to want to carry this around with you all day long. So you want to just get the most minimal items in your everyday carry kit. But this is if you're going to have a little MASH tent to take care of an entire group of people. You would want every single one of these items for different things that would come up. There's a number of other things that we could add to this, but these are the ones we found that get most commonly used. While a first aid kit that has basic bandages and blood stopping ability and the ability to take someone from their state of shock to a state of stabilization, while all these things are important and readily available, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will be able to find them in every situation. If you're traveling and you're outdoors, there's many types of things in nature that can help you as well. Even if you don't have access to a hospital, even if you're miles from a town, even if you're a long ways away from civilization, there are many plants and medicinals that you can find that can help you. This is a list of just a few. There's hundreds and hundreds of them, but these would be ones that you're going to find almost every day are valuable. There will be another video that will go into the uses of all of them. We're just going to show you what they are to keep this video short today. Check these out whenever you get a chance and spend time with these plants. Get to know them. They'll become some of your best friends. Starting here with aloe vera, angelica, also known as wild celery, Arnica montana, the mountain daisy, birch trees, plantain, calendula, also known as a pot marigold, garlic. This plant is amazing. It's called Heal All or Self Heal. Definitely become friends with this one. These three plants are used to keep away insects and are a good combination to have in a tincture or a jar that you can carry around with you. Jewelweed, mugwort, mullein, also some call it Indian tobacco, the neem tree, oregano, pine resin, also called pine sap or pine pitch, the rock rose, eastern sage, one of the most important plants for energy medicine, the Star of Bethlehem, one of the main ingredients in rescue remedy, tea tree, turmeric, willow, western sage, wild lettuce, very good at instant pain relief, witch hazel, and as we previously mentioned, yarrow. Tinctures and extracts of these plants can be carried as well, so that you have all the properties in one small kit. Sometimes it's difficult to carry 40 different herbs in a bag or in a pouch, but having maybe 10 or 15 extracts can combine it all in a way that gives you the chance to apply it to each situation with the least amount of stuff you have to carry and look through. Because the number one tool when you're in an emergency situation is being able to apply something quickly. It's not having every single thing there is, but it's being able to get at it and apply it to someone. You can also add things like homeopathic remedies that have helped people for thousands of years, and a specific type of homeopathic remedy that's really useful are the flower essences. And again, we'll do specific videos on each one of these and go in depth into what they all do. When someone has been traumatized seriously, one of the best remedies is called Rescue Remedy, and it's made up of these 5 flowers: rock rose, impatiens, star of Bethlehem, cherry plum, and clematis. When preparing to treat a large group of people over a long period of time, it is useful to create a mobile medical station. And this could have just about everything under the sun that you can think of that would help somebody. And if you label it, organize it, color code it, put it into some form where it's really easy to understand and use, and then practice with it as often as possible, when you go to have an actual situation, it'll be amazing how quickly you can help somebody. One of the secrets to being a great practitioner in the health field is to be able to give immediate relief for anything, no matter what it is. So the faster you bring the relief, the faster the person feels the benefits of it. We will create a series of videos on all the different elements of integral medicine, and especially go in depth into first aid kits in another video. Now that you've finished all of this, and everyone is okay from head to toe, there are many other different scenarios that you might want to look at. For example, are we planning on dealing with excessive heat or excessive cold? Is it going to be issues that are typically causing an issue because they're too wet or because they're too dry? Are we dealing primarily with urban only and it's big city stuff and that's all we're going to see? Or are we going to get into rural issues and dealing with things out in the wilderness eventually? How urban and rural is it going to be? Are you just dealing with one person? Is this just for you and you're only going to have to take care of yourself today? Or are you going to be taking care of others? How big is your group? What are the ages of the group? Are they going to have elderly and youth in them as well? Infants can be the most challenging. Depending on the size of your group that you have and the ages of them, you're going to have different plans and strategies to help each group differently. So it's good to sit down and ask each person what they like, what their preferences are, get to know them so that you can customize it for each person in your group. Do you believe this challenge is going to be something quick and easy and it's gotten over with simply and fast? Is this a short-term issue, so you're only dealing with it for a couple minutes or a couple hours? Is this something that's going to go long-term and take a couple days or weeks to remedy? We've all been through an experience recently where something that we thought was short-term actually became long-term. So quite often it's good to have everything in your preparedness system ready for long-term, but really practice it short-term because you don't really know how long it's going to go. So get good at it short-term, but maybe have enough supplies on hand so that you can last long-term if you need to. One of the most critical areas of decision-making has to do with how much of the things you're facing are known and how much are unknown. There's an interesting quadrant model here called the Johari window that has 2 columns. I have this problem or we have this problem, and it's something that we know or something we don't know. And so depending on what it is, quite often if you don't know something, you can ask someone in your group. If there's something that your entire group doesn't know, where do you go? Well, you look for someone who does know it, find experts and consultants. So the idea is find as much as you do know and start there, and then keep working into areas where you don't know and keep learning. Once you become clear on what you're preparing for, it becomes much easier to know what to gather, what to purchase, what to harvest, and what to practice, what to train for. These are some skills and abilities that are most valuable and useful in times of challenge. Leadership and providing solutions to various challenges and issues. Protection, keeping everyone safe. Building and demolition, also known as engineering. Medical and health, being able to diagnose and assess quickly what's going on, what are the fastest and easiest treatments that are effective, and what will allow us to continue improving our health on a constant basis, constantly innovating and getting better. Communications, being able to give and receive information, give and receive knowledge, ultimately giving and receiving wisdom. And finally, intelligence, wisdom. This is sort of how much of it are you willing to learn? How much of it are you willing to collaborate with? What are you willing to be, have, and do in order to learn what you need to learn? Of all the skills and abilities people possess, one of the most valuable for any group is to have a good leader. Setting a good example for people. There's an old expression that your children won't always listen to you, but they'll always copy you. We can't necessarily get anybody to do anything, but we can model it for them. Casting vision of a more hopeful future and how to see things getting better. Expecting the best not only from yourself, but from everyone around you. Clearly communicating. There's an old expression that using your ears twice as much as your mouth, that's why you have two ears and one mouth. Leading with your ears, leading by listening. Giving and receiving support. Encouraging others so that they actually have the energy to go carry out whatever is needed. Recognizing them when they do. Inspiring people to be their best and give what they have in the best way that they can. Being in integrity is what you say and what you think and what you imagine and what you hope and what you worry about. Are they all in alignment? Is what you say, think, feel, believe, and do actually aligned? Are you in integrity? Is everyone in the group going through the same situation you are? How in integrity are they? And if they're out of integrity, how do you get back in integrity? Setting clear, simple, easy goals for today, for this week, for this month. Having clearly defined goals that you all are aligned on is very key. These are the areas of leadership that if you focus on them, most everything else sort of naturally takes care of itself. Any number of people could be chosen as examples of great leaders. This happens to be Jim Rohn, who is one of our favorites. Jim is widely considered to be one of the greatest coaches of all time. And if you look at his teachings and watch his videos and learn his lessons, he can share with you just an enormous amount of valuable wisdom. Depending on how far out there we want to get, here's another one of our favorite leaders. A Jedi Master is not just a great warrior or a great teacher or a great trainer or a great leader. One of the secrets of being a Jedi is being who you really are. Since time is really your most precious resource in a given situation, these are some helpful habits to learn. One of the easiest ways to have time for what's important is to get rid of everything that isn't. Constantly taking breaks when you're tired and giving yourself a chance to recharge. There's no battery in the world that can just constantly be on output. It has to charge, and just like breathing, you have to breathe in, then breathe out. Giving yourself a chance to look at what's standing in your way and what's blocking you, and what you can do to remove those things, and where you can receive help with that. Finding what inspires you most. Making it so that you're not the easiest person in the world to get to all the time, so that you actually have time and space to create what's important. Sometimes the hardest thing in getting anything done is just a constant series of distractions. Giving yourself little bursts of time. One of my mentors used to say, the secret to being great at anything, and actually, if you take it all the way to wanting to be the greatest in the world at that thing, he said the secret was to do it 8 hours every day of your life. And that's not doing it 24 hours every day. Giving yourself a good block of time to train and work and grow and improve. And also giving yourself a chance to do other things and take things as they come. Giving yourself time frames that are not overly enthusiastic and unrealistic, but also aren't shooting too low so that if you have them happen, you'll be disappointed. Finding good mid-level goals and timelines so that what you want and what you need and what you have and what you are and what you're doing are all in harmony. And ultimately, in today's world, trying to do it all yourself, trying to do it by hand, trying to get things done with old-fashioned resources, there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you like learning things the hard way. It's just that it's going to take too long and you won't have the results in the time you need them. So learning how to let others help, delegating, automating anything wherever possible frees up your resources to be able to do things that are more important and that can go scale out to help even more people than you would have been able to do doing it by hand. Another one of the key abilities in the system that we share is looking at what are the biggest problems you have and figuring out what will solve them. This is an example from Tony Robbins that shows if you have a problem, get really clear on what it actually is. Not the overview, not the ideas, not the background, the context. Those are all important. But what is the actual issue? What's underneath it? And what are all the solutions that would improve it? And if you narrow it down to 3, notice why those are your 3 favorites. Because the energy that you're going to find and what's in common to all 3, you may find what the actual solution is. What resources are we going to bring here? People say time, energy, and money are required. I would say yes. I also think time, energy, and information, because with the right information, you can create as much wealth and money as you are possible to have. So what sort of time, energy, and resources are required to carry it out? And what are the wisest, most practical, and viable solutions you believe you can implement right now? Because one of the things you can do is upgrade your limiting beliefs. So if you believe that you can do 5 of these, what if someone else in the world shows you how to do 300 and you don't believe it? Well, how are they doing it? If they're able to do it, then you probably are too. So finding a group of experts around you and consultants and teachers and mentors who know how to do it way better, way faster, way more interesting, way more fun than you can be a great way to provide solutions to anything. This is an example of an old-time version of survival skills that's very useful today, not because it's the exact same way the world is now as it was then, but because the same principles are there. You need someone to go out and see what's happening, someone to keep it all organized, someone to lead it, someone to help people heal, someone to keep you safe, someone to take care of your nutrition, someone to find water, someone to entertain, someone to keep the fire burning, someone to go out and provide protein, someone to take care of all the basic needs of sustenance, someone to teach how to improve things, someone to gather what's around you, someone to build things and take care of designing. And then all the other skills that might go into this, you could even add artificial intelligence today. You could add dreaming. There's so many other skills you could add here. This was considered a basic good survival skill at one time. Now improve it. Take it to the next level. Oftentimes when we're dealing with this much information, because we're taking care of all these different things at once, it gets overwhelming. In medicine, we have to reduce everything to acronyms. So if I've got 6, 7, 8,000 pages of material in these books, and I've got 3 days to be able to go apply it, well, those numbers don't really match. But if I can shrink it down, synthesize it, organize it, collate it, get it into a system where it's easier and simpler, I can do it in less and less time. So we try and find acronyms and acrostics for everything. An acrostic is a sentence made out of the letters of an acronym. So when you take something like that and you look at how can I teach it to someone who has no idea what we're talking about here and give it to them in a matter of seconds, not a matter of hours, this is a great way to do it. So this is survival itself turned into an acronym. And you could probably come up with different words besides the ones that are here. This is just an example. Sizing up your situation, using all your senses, I would say using all your resources. Remember where you are, vanquish fear and panic, vanquish perhaps resentment, vanquish guilt and shame. Get rid of whatever's not serving. Improvise, constantly adapt to new situations and learn how to improvise and innovate. Value living. What are your values? What's important to you? What is the most important things in your life? What are your priorities? Act like the people who've already lived there and done it and know what they're talking about. When anybody goes to a new place, one of the fastest ways to learn that place is to go to people who've been living there their whole lives. So for example, if you wanted to learn a new language or learn a certain custom or culture, Find someone who's been raised in that culture, who knows it their whole life. Living by your wits, certainly living by your wits is an aspect of it. Living by your knowledge, living by your skills, living by your abilities, these are all important. Ultimately, I would suggest that if you live by your wisdom, you already know all this stuff to begin with. Your spirit, your higher power, your inner truth, whatever you want to call it, already knows most of these things. Go access that. Go find that. It's already here. If we were to sit down and map out the most common disciplines that people study, here's a number of them that are worth exploring. And there are so many other skills and abilities that are important to learn. This list could go on endlessly. But what we tried to do here is sit down and think of what are the most common things that everybody studies that we really want to get better at, that are really important, and make time for them. Because you don't have time for everything in your life. You can't become an expert at everything. Pick the things that you're already best at, you already care about, you already love most, and you're already interested in, because this is where your map lies. If we all do this together, we'll find our maps start to overlap. And this idea was based on a training system and education system known as the Waldorf schools. And what Waldorf does is they sit down and say, what are all the areas of your life that you need to get good at, and how old are you, and what level are you at in them? So this was an idea of sitting down and looking at your life and saying, what are all the different areas you need to get good at, what you need to learn about, and what level of training do you need in that thing? Because you can't get advanced training in all of it. There's too much. The more things you want to learn, the more basic you need to start usually. So what are the simplest things that everybody needs to learn? And then what would be the top things in those? And start learning them in that pattern. So for example, what are all the languages you're going to speak that you need to deal with the situations you're facing? Can you do the basic math and the numbers involved? Can you create things? Can you get an inspiration through art and music to want to actually do anything? Can you have the physical leverage to do it and the expertise to go out and create what you want to do physically? And can you leverage other things? The flow of time, best practices, resources, people, information. How can you make the most of the resources you have and create more value all the time? Healing, medicine, taking care of your nutrition, your home, your money, your leadership abilities, your people, your relationships, the sciences, technology, being prepared. That's kind of where we're going today, is down the preparedness path of what will prepare you for anything. What sort of transportation navigation, what sort of spiritual stuff, what sort of mystical stuff. So as practical or as ethereal as you want to get, here's all these different disciplines to study. Pick the ones that are going to be most valuable for your group. Once you've gotten clear on all the information that your group needs and what is it that you're trying to accomplish, one of the fastest ways to do it is to put it all into a waterproof binder. Take all the things that you're learning and make them so that the group has access to that binder constantly and you're constantly improving it. So give yourself a chance to learn new systems, new ideas, new things, and put them in paper form so that if for some reason the electrical systems aren't available, you can still learn this stuff. There's people who learn things for millions of years before they had electricity. It can still be done. So figure out, what are your priorities? How do you get a hold of your trusted group, your emergency contacts? What information does your family need? What do they have that's absolutely critical to maintain so that you always have that information on hand when you need it? What utilities, what services? How do you keep track of all of your different providers? What happens if someone gets hurt and has to go into strangers and you need to give them the medical background? What sort of financial issues, insurance, all the other important documents you have, accounts, passwords, these are all your most private, secure things. It's great to have these in a paper format so that everyone in your team can have access to it. But if it's really secure and it's really private and it's something super sensitive, you may want it on a flash drive, something that's secure, something that's encrypted, something that only people with the code can get at. So you might have parts of this that are available to the whole team and other parts that are only available to specific people on the team. One of the fastest, easiest ways to learn anything is to simply take a piece of paper and write it down. Jim Rohn taught this again and again. He said the best book you could ever read is the one that you wrote of your best ideas and your best principles, your best wisdoms, your best learnings that you've ever done. So start to gather all the best things you can, write them, record them, gather them into a form where you can share them. And the more you practice teaching them, the more you learn them. So whether you're going to do it in paper or cardboard or glass or wood or digital form, whatever format you use doesn't really matter. Just get it captured, get it practicing. And so if you do it in pencil, it's the easiest way to start, or pen. Or if you're going to add some color to it, look at what is the fastest, easiest way to get that information out there to help as many of you as possible. So if you sit down today and even take a look at 5 minutes of what could I do today just to get started? Let me outline my stuff. Let me figure out what I know how to teach. Let me have everyone on the team do this. Let's each take 5 minutes today just to start sketching or drawing or outlining something, because as you do that, you'll start to get clear on the next steps. Now you can paint it, you can build it, you can sculpt it, you can take it into whatever format you want and make it as beautiful, as interesting, make it as fun to experience as possible. If you look at all the artists and authors and people through time that created great value, there's a whole list. This happens to be one of our favorites. If we think about all the things that he drew and all the things that he put down with a simple piece of paper and a pen and a marker and a set of colors, look at how many millions of people's lives he improved. It's amazing. So now, once you've produced all these materials, what's the easiest way to practice it every day and have it become better and better? It's turning it into a game, making it fun. So what's a game that you could produce that's quick, simple, easy, fast, fun that you'd love to play? Or what are some ones that exist already that you can just go grab? So if you're not going to produce your own, that's fine. What if you take someone on the team and ask them, does anybody have anything that they particularly love, that they particularly enjoy? Let's all sit down and bring 3 or 4 things that we all enjoy most, put them together, create a system out of that. I've seen probably 6,000 to 7,000 pieces of information in my life that were absolutely amazing. I wish I could have archived them, saved them, turned them into a library. But for whatever reasons, they're not here anymore. Well, they're still here somewhere in the big picture, if you will, the Akashic records, whatever you want to call that. If I could show it to you today, how much better would your life be? So maybe sit down with a simple piece of paper and an eraser and a pencil and just sketch out the most basic ideas you have of the most important things you can think of. This is a great exercise just for relieving stress and taking the pressure off, but it can also be really valuable and make a huge difference when the time comes. This is how we like to do it. These are called flashcards, and so you can make a deck of 52 playing cards. You can learn one each week for 52 weeks of the year. You can take different cards and play them in different settings so that you have different types of cards for different situations. You could take all 12 of these areas that we're teaching in this video and turn them into a deck of cards. There's so many ways to learn, but the more often you practice it, the more fun it is, the more interesting it is. Typically, the more you're going to retain it and be able to use it. So what sort of minimal, super powerful, miniature book could you create? Or cards, or whatever format it takes, but what would be the most powerful thing you could create? This is one of the ones we like. David here created a little guide that allows you to sit down and look at what are the most important things in your life, and it's sort of like a miniature version of everything that you need to do that you can carry in your pocket, that you can have with you in a little Altoid tin. It's designed to be carried in a wallet. Genius. So one of the things we're looking at here is if we could only carry one book with us, let's say that for some reason digital went away for a while, we couldn't use our computers, we couldn't use our phones, and all we had was paper devices, what one piece of information would you want to carry with you? I would typically carry something like this, and if I could only have one book, I'd probably have this book. This mentor probably taught more about survival than almost anyone I know of, and was the SAS survival instructor for many years, who I would say wrote probably the greatest book of history on how to survive any situation. So if you check this book out, get a small copy of it, a pocket copy, make sure at least one person in your group has a copy of this anywhere you go. It is invaluable. It has so many amazing lessons in it. Very useful. What's one small, powerful piece of information you can carry with you anywhere you go? And since it's not possible to carry all these books during challenging times, if you're going to have one book, this might be the one to have. Now, out of curiosity, if you were to pick one book out of your library, which one would you choose? We'd love to have you share it in the comments here and let us know so all of us can benefit from your wisdom, because this isn't all about we're teaching you. This is also about we're learning from you. And so anything you could share with us about if there was one movie, one book, one DVD, one training system, one teaching, one idea, if you went to one thing that you would call the most valuable thing you've ever learned, please share that with the community here. In today's digital world, we can have thousands of books on a single screen whenever we want it, providing there is power and a signal, which unfortunately is not always the case. When creating information and sharing it, the power of phones, tablets, and laptops is absolutely amazing. When creating information and sharing it, the power of a simple cell phone has more value than perhaps any king or queen of history had access to during their lifetime. If you think about what you can do with a single laptop, how it can run entire organizations, how it can actually transform the world in a matter of minutes. And if you combine the idea of a portable phone with the power of a laptop, you get a tablet. So what sort of tablet do you use, and how could you create with your tablet? So the idea of each of these devices is incredible. What could you do to share your wisdom with the world today? With the knowledge of basic software and a little bit of coding experience, your information can be multiplied and shared quickly and easily with millions of people around the world in a matter of moments. And while there are many things worth learning, we will start with some of the basics, such as the very substances that make up material itself. These are the basic elements of the universe that can be combined to create whatever is needed. So emptiness and space itself, form, patterns, geometry, existence of structures and shapes, and then what are the materials you can use? You've got the earth, the minerals, the rocks, all the different substances of the earth. You have the liquids, water. You have air, gases, fire, heat, energy, light, space. All these different things combine to create whatever you want to create. This diagram explains the basic elements that we have to build everything with. If you understand this, you can do amazing things with the materials that we have on this planet. So even getting familiar with the most basics of chemistry, the most basics of materials, will allow you to start to look at what do you want to create and what materials will you use to create it with. If you were to learn the 3 top languages of the world right now, what would they be? It depends on the situation you're in, the area of the world you're in. Obviously there's variables, but if you look at the overall world, for the most people who speak a certain language, the most popular language in the world is Mandarin Chinese. The second, a lot of people believe is English, but it's actually Spanish. And then would come English, and you can look at all the different languages such as Arabic and Russian and Hindi, and there's plenty of languages that are worth learning. But if you look at the volume of the amount of people who speak the most of that particular language, Chinese, Spanish, and English in that order are the top 3. It may be useful to at least learn a couple phrases in each of those languages just as a survival skill, just to be able to negotiate and deal with people and have the most common chance to be able to speak a language that someone else speaks. In an interesting book called The Art of War, a Chinese general named Sun Tzu used this tool called an abacus to win many battles before they were even fought. So many of the variables could be calculated and risk assessed ahead of time that it became unnecessary to actually go through with the battle. He was able to examine hundreds of different scenarios before they would even go into a particular area. And so they could figure out how to alleviate a lot of the pain and suffering and misery that they would have otherwise had to have experienced. So just using an abacus to calculate how many bags of rice, how many miles the horse can travel, how many soldiers can carry how much, etc., etc., how much distance from here to there, how far they would have to go. They could calculate so many things ahead of time, and based on those findings, they could see almost, this is likely, that's not likely. They could see all that ahead of time. I believe that book could have actually been called The Art of Peace. And so the same thing applies today. If you can sit down and look at all the threats and disasters and things that are bothering you and worrying you, and take a look at which ones are most likely, which ones you know how to deal with, which ones you have resources for. There's so many ways to actually take care of a lot of the issues in a preventative measure until you have to actually go and do it curatively. So the old ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure. It's the same thing in time. How many minutes can you spend now is how many hours you don't have to spend suffering later. There's an old military expression that the more you can sweat today, the less you'll bleed tomorrow. The modern equivalent of this, if one has access to solar cells, is a simple solar-powered calculator. It is amazing what you can learn just from this little device that can charge itself and continuously give you information. And it's almost no overhead, no risk, no difficulty. It's such a great tool. So whenever people are making bug-out bags and scenarios and plans, I always tell them, make sure you have a solar-powered calculator in there. It's one of the most valuable tools you can have, especially in your professional career. What is the goal for you and your loved ones? This may be one of them. When asked what most people want for their children around the world, the most common answer is for them to be happy. If you want your family and loved ones to be happy, what would create the most happiness today? That's the game we're playing here, is how can we get started on being as happy as possible right now and then have even more of it later? If you look at the weather, if you look at the stock market, if you look at the economy, if you look at the challenges we're facing, the list goes on and on. From disease and poverty and war and pestilence and etc., etc., almost in biblical proportions, some may say. No matter how blue the world is, look inside yourself and see what is going well. Ask yourself the question, what is going well today? Is there anything in your life that you can be inspired by, you can be excited about, you can be happy about? One of the fastest, easiest ways to make it through any challenging, life-threatening situation is the will to live. If you really want to be here, if you're really interested in thriving, if you really want to help others, if you're inspired to create something, you can have the effect of millions of negative people just with yourself. So just going and creating one set of inspiration, one set of training, one set of teaching, anything to help your loved ones, that is a form of health and happiness that is sustainable and will probably create more value in their life than almost anything else you can do. It's easy to look around at the world and say no to everything. There's many times when we can see the glass half full or half empty, and we're correct either way. But one of the things that my father used to say is that optimists and pessimists may be correct the same amount of time, but the optimist gets to enjoy the ride. While yes and no are both important responses, many times those who thrive are focused on finding the yes more often than the no. Getting clear on the personalities of everyone in your group is also important so that you can collaborate most effectively. In the 9 areas of life, these would typically be the types of people to collaborate with. So if we were to look at our original map of feng shui, the center talks about how health is so critical and it's the one to focus on. It's also possible to look at healers as the people who can gather everyone together and see what will help us get there. What do we need? We always have to come back to health and healing. But then you have people who help take care of things, people who teach, people you work with, people you create things with, people you love, people who promote stuff, help you grow, have the ability to reach a larger audience or influence people more, people who can advise you, people who can travel with you. These are all different types of people. Any good team has at least one of these people on it. Now if you expand that out and say our group has one of each type, so typically having a group of 9 would be ideal. Now look at what would happen if you scaled that out and a whole bunch of teams grew. This is what happens is if you scale this model up, you eventually get to a place where your group is expanding and it turns into an actual organization. Well, this is just an organizational development model of the same thing. In the center, you're gathering the best people. You're figuring out your purpose and your values and vision and mission and your charter. You're getting funded. You're marketing out to the ideal clients. You're building your projects so that you keep improving. You're training everybody so that you are constantly getting better and getting better results. Your leaders are teaching management that allows everyone to thrive, and you find joint venture partners to keep scaling and expanding. It's the same model of the personal team and the personal group, just expanded out to a professional organization. Making sure you survive is only one of the first results. Now, taking it to the next level, how can you collaborate and grow it out so that others can have it as well? You can then look at what results you'll need to completely thrive. The art of collaboration is about alignment and ownership. So if you align on it, it means that we see the solutions in a similar way. And ownership is if we're committed to having those results. So what results are you looking for today? And how can you have them start to happen right now? One of the simplest ways is to sit down and look at what's the easiest thing to start with and then move it to all of its most complex form ultimately that it will turn into. But start with what's simplest. So if you're looking at working with people, the easiest person to start with is yourself. It's good to mention it here that you and the person in the mirror is the number one collaboration you're always going to have. Then you can share it with another. Depending on how many of us are in the group and how many are in the group that we're serving, there's basically 16 possibilities. One-on-one is the simplest, moving all the way up in complexity to complete organizational development and helping companies grow and scale and expand at a macro level. It's often good to practice these types of scenarios ahead of time to see where each of you and your team serves best so that you can have the greatest win for everyone. A best practice is to sit down and practice these scenarios ahead of time to see where each of you in your group serves best so that you can create the greatest win for all of us. This mind map of basics is designed to give an overview of what all the basics look like from a more practical, everyday project management, planning, strategy, mind map sort of view. So there's what you love most, your basics of hydration, your energy, your connections, your relationships, your barter abilities, the skills you're learning, how to improve your health, having extra food and resources stored up, how-to libraries so that you can learn how to improve everything, and having multiple forms of income. It's basically our 12-wheel model from 20 years ago when it was first started. This is what we used to teach, and it's still useful. It's just that we've expanded it into a bigger form. This was the original version, and I thought it would be useful for you to see if you want to make a mind map of your own so you can actually take your ideas and map them out just like this. This is called a mind map, and it allows you to take all of your basics and put them into an everyday framework that you can use on a digital system to make it easier to apply it and improve it. If we look at the 9 stars model from Feng Shui of the 9 areas of life, these are the 9 areas of life transforming from what we typically don't want to what we typically do want. And so if you look at the art of transformation, it's really from going from poverty to wealth, from depression to feeling good about yourself, from being unhappy to happy and joyful, from surviving to thriving, which is the whole point of this video, is to teach here's what you have to do to survive, here's all the way it can go and how far you can thrive. Going from sickness to health, going from incomplete to finished and completed, going from ignorance to wisdom, going from being unfulfilled to being fulfilled, and going from being isolated to well-connected. These are the typical transformations of the 9 areas. You could fill in many others, but these have been really helpful for us and for the people we've worked with over the years to take a look at where are you currently and where do you want to be and how do we get there. The 9 areas of life transforming from what we don't want to what we do want often looks like this. Something that's integrated is complete, whole, and connected. Our 12 areas of preparedness are attempting to create an integral solution for anything that you'll face. We welcome your feedback and your wisdom to constantly keep improving it for all of us. And if you look at that model of integral, it says, here's everything in life. Let's connect it all up and make a single model that we can use to apply that works successfully again and again and again. Once you've assessed all the abilities and skills that your group has, and that everybody's doing the best they can to improve things, it's useful to look at which tools and equipment you're going to use in order for it to happen. Some of the most basic functions that tools provide are cutting things up, splitting them, prying things apart, pounding them and fastening them together, clamping and holding them, shaping them, measuring and marking to begin with, sewing, attaching, digging and scraping, coding, painting, testing things, trying them out, cooking, and organizing them all. These are some classic examples of things that tools can do for us. The need to cut things is the common everyday experience we all have, and a basic blade is always useful. A simple fixed knife that's a full tang, that means that the length of the knife runs all the way through the handle so it won't break. These are examples of things that just are the most basic tools that everyone can benefit from. This is one of the most effective multi-tools. And if you only have one thing with you, if you lost all your other gear and you only had one thing, this may be a good one to have. The standard classic for many years has been this one, known as the Swiss Army tool. And what's neat about it is it's not just a knife or a pliers or a scissors. It's not just a bottle opener or a can opener or a saw. It's not just a file or a hook or a sewing needle or an awl or a punch or a screwdriver, etc., etc. It's all these things at once, which means you don't have to have all those handles and all those extra pieces of weight that are unnecessary to have the same function. So if you think of preparedness like this, what are the one or two things you can have that does all these different things, and how do you just have a couple of them in your kit? You want to get your kit down to just a series of multi-tools. Everything in your kit should have at least 2 or 3 functions minimum. If you can find stuff that has 5 or 10 functions, those are the best, because that way you need less and less stuff to carry. The purpose of a multi-tool is that it can perform a variety of uses without taking up any extra weight or space. These are compact scissors that can be used to cut, and when they're not being used, can be folded up so where they're safe and they won't injure anyone. This hatchet has been used for many, many years to process wood and provide safety and security and perform a number of functions. It can also be used like a hammer, but it's nice because it can be carried on a belt and you don't have to have it in your hands. Ideally, every single tool you want stored somewhere that leaves your hands free. Here's a sharp hatchet that can easily be carried on a belt, performs a wide variety of functions, and leaves your hands free most of the time to be able to do other things. A folding saw is another useful tool that can allow you to have fire all the time processing wood. It can also be used for building. It can also be used for processing other items that are difficult to cut, and is lightweight, folds up, stores in your pack. Very useful tool. Vice grips are a type of pliers that were invented so that you can actually clamp onto something and it will hold it for you without you having to hold it. So it's like providing you a third hand. Trowels are used for simple digging and harvesting and working with the earth. There's many varieties. They come in all shapes and sizes, and some of them are extremely lightweight and strong. Cordage is the term that we apply to any type of string or cord or rope, and some of the most useful is called 7-stranded parachute cord, also known as paracord, because if you see the 7 strands, each one of those can hold a certain amount on its own, and each strand is twisted up, and it can be separated as well to make 3 smaller strands. So you actually have 21 tiny strands wrapped in a single piece of rope, and those little 21 strands can be used for sewing, for dental floss. So you basically have small, medium, and large cord at the same time. Paracord is nicknamed that because it's parachute cord, and it's designed to be able to hold up to 550 pounds and a heavy load. And so 550 cord is actually designed to hold 550 pounds of stress So if you double it up, it would hold 1,100 pounds of stress. And so the idea is with a couple strands of this, you can really create a lot of strength. You can twist 3 of these together and have a very powerful rope. Another useful type of cordage is called tarred mariner's cord, or more commonly referred to as bank line. These are heavy-duty bands made out of inner tube tires from bicycles and are incredibly strong and durable and will keep your gear stable and silent. And since the group that uses them the most were called the Rangers, they're nicknamed Ranger bands. One of the fastest ways to access things and have them organized to begin with is putting them in small clear pouches for ease of use. This way when you go to look for something, it's instantly available, you can see exactly what you're dealing with, and you can find it right away. And any even semi-transparent container can make it so that you don't have to constantly look through every container to locate what's needed. It doesn't have to be completely clear, but as long as it has some transparency, it makes it much faster and easier to find your stuff when you need it. One of the easiest tools to provide food in any culture is a simple fishing pole, and this one is nice because it's collapsible and it will fit in your backpack. One of the easiest ways to carry tools around is to form them into a small kit of some type, so that you can have everything all at once, whether in a pouch or a bag or a belt. We suggest a minimum level of tools within arm's reach 24 hours a day. This can be in the form of a small pouch, bag, or worn as a belt. We believe in making age-appropriate kits for everyone in your group so that everyone has what they need and what they want. What you carry and how much depends on what you're preparing for. Here are some examples of very simple, minimal kits that you can put together, especially to save children's and elderly people's lives. One of the smallest kits you can have is a wearable bracelet. This kit, for example, was used in special military training to ensure that someone could survive any situation in the world, and it still fits in their pocket. These components are assembled to form an incredibly useful tool known as a ranger necklace. In the upper left, we have 2 substances combined together to make fire. There's a solar-powered mini light, a cravat or a triangular bandage, also can be used as a bandana. The fastest way to replace someone's blood is with salt water, and so chicken soup has been used forever in that capacity. Extremely strong duct tape, a signal mirror, rubber bands that are high strength and durable, known as ranger bands, a small whistle that allows you to signal people so that you don't have to rely on your voice only, a can opener. The 2 substances that go into the keychain holders up at the top left, one is called glycerin, made of vegetables in a clear liquid, and the other is called potassium permanganate. And combined together, glycerin and potassium permanganate are known as chemical fire. This is what special operations teams use to make fire even in the ice and snow. Guaranteed fire. The next is a ferrocerium rod and a striker to make sure that you can always have spark. The next is a mini saw that you can use to cut through small limbs and provide yourself a variety of shelter options. The next is a glow stick so that the light that you're shining doesn't have to be on all night. You can charge up that and look at things simply with its glow, and you can just charge it 4 or 5 times a night to see what you're doing and not use up your batteries. The next is a little flashlight that you can use when needed to have a white light. It can also turn into a red light. It can also turn into a signal light. It has many different options of lighting. Next we have a small Swiss Army tool, the most minimal multi-tool, along with its companion that you can use to basically create just about anything you need in the smallest tool options. A set of clear plastic tubing that the saw will embed itself into so that you can actually drink water and get yourself access to hydration in places that you normally wouldn't be able to get to, a little mini guide to be able to understand what to do in a situation, and a waterproof lighter to make easy flame and get heat and shelter. All this combined makes a nice wearable necklace, makes it real easy to take care of issues quickly and easily. All the items you see here, when assembled together, create a thing called a ranger necklace. Here's an example of an original one made many years ago that you can use to carry all your tools in one small, simple system. If you were to lose all of your gear and for some reason weren't able to access any of your other tools, having this small tool called a ranger necklace can be invaluable because it has everything you need to survive several days and can be worn 24 hours a day as part of your everyday carry gear. Many great survival kits come in small tins to make them portable, lightweight, and easy to use. The Special Air Service pioneered the use of these everything-in-one style kits and are some of the best in the world. If you only had one kit to take care of your family, this is a good place to start. It combines the most useful tools into the smallest configuration that's easy and comfortable to wear. This is an example of what our group carries because we want to be ready for anything and be able to help anyone we come across as quickly and effectively as possible. This kit was really well designed. It doesn't have anything extra that you don't need, and it's really got a lot of multi-use valuable items that if you can find these now out there, some of them are hard to find, but the whole kit itself is a very well put together and well thought out piece of kit. This is an example of a thorough kit that has everything one needs and is fairly comfortable to wear. This starts getting into the, are you willing to put up with what you have to get through things? It's going to be a little bit heavier, it's going to be a little bit more uncomfortable. It's also going to have everything you need, and you're going to be able to access it in less than a minute. So it's a great kit, and it's also something that you would kind of move up to the next level after you've gotten all your basics handled. This is what a typical 3-day kit looks like. It's heavy, it's bulky, it's hard to find your stuff, it's not easy to take with you everywhere you go, but it's got everything you need and it's very versatile. It can do a lot of different things, and depending on how many of you there are, you put 10 of these together and you've got a really nice group that can go through all kinds of amazing stuff. This is an example of a kit that might have been carried 100 years ago. And although things have changed, materials have improved, designs have gotten better, everything's evolved, many of the basics are still the same wherever you go. It's got your basic cutting tools, your basic ability to navigate and see where you're going, to see stuff before it's near you, ability to start a fire, the ability to heal yourself and repair anything, and the ability to catch some food. Very good, simple, minimal outdoors kit. This is an interesting kit that was put together. A bunch of us sat down and said, what could we do to help people understand how to get ready for things without having a huge budget, or what's the simplest everyday stuff around us that we could turn into kit that doesn't require a lot of time and energy, just some resourcefulness and ability to put things together. This was made with absolutely zero expense. This is everything made out of found items. Quite an interesting project. This kit is designed for the modern life that we live in, with every type of technology and electronic device and the ability to fix it, repair it, organize it, update it, finish it into its final form. This is like if you had to sit down and take care of any one of your electronic devices, any of your electronic equipment, this is the type of thing that would allow you to have access to just about anything, including vehicles, including a lot of different things that require small moving parts. This will help you take care of all that. This kit was from several years ago when we were looking originally at the best kits in the world that we could find and what was put together and pre-made and packaged and ready to go. This was one of the best designs we found back in the day. It was very good for its time. You could say now that there's many things that would improve it, but for the amount of time and energy it took, the price point, the value, it was a great kit in its day. This is a modern version of a similar system that has kind of everything you need, but it's been really well designed. It's been labeled, it's organized. It's almost like if you didn't really know anything about preparedness, start here. This has sort of everything you need. It's all been put together. It's been tested. It's been redesigned again and again. It's been labeled. It's been made so that it's easy. It's color-coded. It's attachable. It's modular. Very, very well designed. An amazing kit. This would be something that I would recommend for anybody who's just starting out, who wants something thorough but really needs to kind of learn the system. This is a system that's kind of ready to use, and you can spend your time customizing it and improving it. This was a training that we put on a while back, known as Emergency Preparedness Fair, where we let people experience some of the best gear that we could find, that they could get access to, that anyone could get off the open market, and more importantly, how to use it. So we went through all 12 areas of preparedness, what type of gear we personally carry in our own kits, what things we would suggest you might look for, tips and tricks, things to watch out for, things to avoid. We spent an entire day teaching everyone how to use the various types of kits that were available on today's market and ones that we customized ourselves, and then did a whole bunch of question and answer so people could figure out what they wanted to do in their own personal lives and with their loved ones. This is an example of a great vehicle kit that will allow you to get where you need to go. It's got protective gear, it's got signal, it's got the ability to move items, to repair stuff, to fix broken things, to put out a fire, to make shelter and heat and fire if you need it. It's sort of like a traveling, multifunctional kit that allows you to have your basics anywhere you go in the world. Very nice, simple, easy design, easy to use, just a real practical kit. This version of Travel Kit is put together specifically for cold weather, so you've got the ability to get unstuck, work with snow and ice, take care of yourself in modern conveniences. It's not as advanced, it's not as perhaps versatile, but it's real simple, basic, practical. Everybody ought to have one of these in their car in the winter, or something very similar to it. We put this here as an example of how quickly and easily you can get ready for winter with just a few basic items and a little bit of wisdom. If you take the best kits, the best trainings, the best resources, organize everything, test it, repeatedly use it again and again to save lives, find out how to make it better, constantly version it, innovate it as far as you can, this is what it might end up looking like. You want to have everything in a system where a whole team can use it, everybody has consistent gear, things are put in the same place, they're labeled. This is something so a complete stranger could walk up and use it, and it's all color-coded, it's organized. People of different professions, different backgrounds, different teams, you could do a quick training on it, and they would know how to use it immediately. Very well-designed system, very well put together, thought out, tested, tried. This is the type of thing that we aspire to ultimately. If you're looking at how can you make sure your loved ones make it through anything, this is the level it goes to when you get really proficient and really become like an expert in the area. We've tested many kits in hundreds of different environments and situations all around the world for many years, and have borrowed the wisdom from as many experts as we could to improve our chances of thriving no matter what. And ultimately our goal here is to give you all the resources that you can use so you can figure out what's going to help you the most, what you've got time for, what you're willing to deal with, and help you get prepared as quickly and easily as possible. Of all the resources one can have, extra time is perhaps the most valuable. There's an old saying that the best time to plant a fruit tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So time is the most valuable thing you've got, but what if you have a bunch of time and you're using it wisely? What would you do with that time? This is a diagram showing other valuable things to have as well besides time when our loved ones' lives depend on it. The larger the word, the more important its value in our experience. This is not to say that everybody's going to have the same values on everything, but if we were to take all of our teammates and interview them over a period of years and notice what they actually used, what happened the most often, what was the hardest to come by, what did they find gave them the most return on their time, this is our system based on what we've experienced, and we'd love to have you create one of your own. please feel free to sit down and start to look at what things have you used in your life, what's made it most valuable for you, what has given you the most return on your time and energy. And take a look here and notice, is there anything on this list you've never seen, you never thought about? Maybe just get clear on what 5 to 10 items here you believe is most important for you to work on first. These are the ones that we would recommend you start with based on the size of the word. So wisdom is the most important, and protection and kits and community, and it works its way down to things that are nice to have but aren't immediately required right away. These are examples of what many people consider valuable for trading. There may be different things on here than what you would use, but not everything on here is designed to be something you need. This is something that someone else might need. So, for example, our team doesn't drink a lot of alcohol, but we may carry a bunch of alcohol to trade with someone who does, because that's what's valuable to them. So this is really designed to look at what do other people want, and what are they willing to barter in exchange for? What is the demand high for that you can have with you at all times? And that way you'll always have an exchange of value, resources, wealth. Precious metals have been valuable throughout history. Many wars have been fought over gold and silver. If you sit down and look at what sort of gold and silver and precious metals do you have access to, what form would you like to have them in? These big blocks like this are typically not very helpful because you'd have to use them for something really big. It's better to have small little units that you can trade every day. But if you had to throw something in the back of a car or a vehicle or hide something in a wall or store something, this may be a way to hold a bunch of its value all at once so that you can just carry one block, set it somewhere, keep it stored in a cache, use them to trade for large items, and you don't have to carry a lot of small things. So different sizes of units, different sizes of trade depending on the situation. Precious stones have also been a part of trading forever. Precious stones, jewelry, things that people value, people find beautiful, interesting. This is an example of early Native American money in North America and was known as wampum and was traded very heavily amongst certain tribes for various items. Other people might have used shells or various items that they'd created that they found each other wanted. Blankets, for example, beaded jewelry, rugs. There was many things that got traded widely, and so an exchange system based on something so you didn't have to carry 500 of this for 200 of that. This is some of the earliest money that was used here in North America. When you're out buying and selling and trading things all day long, having different denominations is very helpful. And so coins are typically the smallest one and are easy to trade for simple everyday items. So you might carry a bunch of them and trade them for a bunch of different things that you need. While looking at bigger items, you may want to have a combination of coin and cash. And so now you start looking at the different denominations of bills and currency. Any combination of coin and cash that you feel comfortable carrying can help create a lot of situations that make things easier, faster, simpler. Instead of walking into a problem and saying, how are we going to solve this? Sometimes a little bit of money, a little bit of wealth can get people to negotiate, to be more open-minded, to help each other out. There's many reasons why we would use currency. We could do whole sets of trainings on wealth itself, but the idea is just to have some basic coin and currency with you at all times. While wealth comes in many forms, if we are simply talking about money, it's important to have various currencies and denominations from any of the places you intend to deal with. There are many other forms of wealth, such as securities, investments, certificates, deeds, trusts, intellectual property, services, and many other forms of ownership and assets that deserve their own video. Our intention is to give an overview here of the whole circle of preparedness and let you decide which slice to focus on first. This was an interesting old kit issued to U.S. Navy pilots in order for them to get home safely, and if you look at the items in the kit, things haven't really changed all that much when it comes to the basics. You can see representations of time, of precious metals, of jewelry, and other types of collectible valuables that people might find useful and interesting and be willing to exchange goods and services for. This is an example of how wealth transforms over time. And it's important to understand when it comes to any scenario, it depends on the risk and the reward. So this constantly shows the flow of risk to reward. So everything's going great. We're optimistic. It's totally exciting. I want to get a hold of it. You want to get a hold of it. We're competing for it. We drive the price up. Everyone's going crazy. There's a huge run. Everybody runs out and tries to grab it. There's all this excitement. People start to get overconfident. They overspend. They take excessive risk. They live in denial. They don't believe that what they're doing is dangerous. They go full speed ahead. They take all this risk. And at this point of maximum risk, since they're in denial, they end up doing a lot of things that they later regret. Once you regret things enough, and you start to realize that, oh, that's not going to work, oh, we shouldn't have done that, etc., etc., fear starts to creep in. People start to talk about the negative side of things. Everything always comes to a balance. Whether it's going up or down, it's always going to return to the center. So this is when things start to shift into fear and panic. And when there's enough panic and enough challenge and enough difficulty, people hit despair. And this is the worst of the market, when everyone feels like, oh my gosh, it's never going to go back to normal. What are we going to do? Sell it all, get rid of it, try and get anything you can, pennies on the dollar, all that type of stuff. And at this point in the market is when a lot of people who are really interested in taking a lot of risk do really well, because they step in and buy things for fractions of what they would normally cost. Then as things get really bad, we go through this panic, we go through this despair, we go through this depression. Depending on how long that lasts, you go through a lot of cutting back on things, getting rid of stuff, renegotiating things, figuring out how to do with less, all that type of stuff. You also find people who are getting resourceful, getting creative, creating new markets, creating new things. And pretty soon, once enough of the negative stuff has happened, hope eventually returns. People start to go, wow, maybe it isn't going to stay bad forever. Things can't go down all the time. They eventually have to come back up, start to see relief. There's a certain amount of optimism. Things start to get better, and the cycle repeats. Being able to offer your services and products to a market while minimizing your expenses and risk will optimize whatever you're doing financially, not only short-term, but eventually long-term. And so if you look at, there's two ways to use this. There's figuring out how much resources you need, and there's figuring out how many things you have to generate for that to happen. So either way, it's a valuable model. You can look at how many people you would have to share the ideas with and the services and products, how many will say yes, how long they stay around, how many times they interact with you in a given time period, the average price of those transactions, the costs that you can't understand and you don't really know, and how much variety there might be within them, the variable costs, and then the guaranteed costs that you really know that are pretty much set all the time, that are standard. Whatever that is becomes your profit that you're going to work with. Now, depending on what that profit goal is, you just reverse it and you say, what costs do we know about? What do we know that's going to be here? We're always going to have these basics. We're always going to have a place to sleep. We're always going to have things to drink, food to eat, medicines, all the basics. Now, what are the ones we don't know about? Depends on the situation. Sometimes a simple mistake with a match can cost $500,000 of damage. You know, there's things you can't anticipate. There's also things that you can't anticipate in the other direction, such as a windfall of some type where you get gifted something. You win a game or a lottery or something, all of a sudden you come into a huge amount of something. So there's variable things that we don't know, but if we can estimate our fixed costs, get a range of variable costs, then you can start to think about what's the normal price that you want to charge per transaction. How many people would you want to do that with? How long do they need to stay with you? What's the lifetime value of that person? And how many are going to say yes to begin with? Then based on that, that's how many people are going to have to hear about it and become familiar with it. So this is a great model to just look at sort of what are your ranges of high and low? What are your likely scenarios? What's most likely going to happen? This is a great way to get financial stability. One of the key skills and abilities in the professional life is being able to actually have a brand or a persona or a message that resonates with people. So when you're looking at branding, the idea is if you want financial viability and you want to be successful, this isn't just something you would do for your group. This is something you could do for other groups as well to help them become successful. So telling a great story, the highest value idea you have, who your market is and who your community is already, what you promise them, what your principles are, who you are, why you're here, what you believe in, the world that they're going to experience by becoming a part of your brand, how they can get a hold of you, how you can touch them in various ways that they appreciate, what added value you bring that other places might not have, and the strategy you're going to use to share it with everybody. Branding can be a really key ingredient in setting up yourself to be prepared for anything over the long term, because as you get good at creating brands, you can just create another one and another one and another one. If a situation should ever happen where currencies become difficult to use and a barter system is needed, this is an example of a typical consulting project where you start with what you have that's most valuable and offer it to someone who wants it most. If everyone on your team knows how to do this, your chances of success are improved greatly. So the basic idea is you have a set of values, and the people that you're offering the value to has their set of values. When your values match, when you have shared values and you build relationship, things that they need, things that they want, you can find ways of conceptually agreeing to it and saying, would you like it this way? Would you like it this way? Once you have conceptual agreement, you can sit down and create a quick proposal with various options. For example, here's the small, here's the middle, here's the large. Or you can say, here's the fast, here's the medium range. This is going to take longer term. This one has low risk. This one has a little bit of risk. This one's kind of risky. There's different ways to structure options so that you can see what range fits them best and fits you best. And then when you sit down and accept it and it happens, you go to implement it, you create those results. Now both of you win, and you keep doing this, and this is how you keep a consulting process going over time. It's a very simple model, but it's very successful because it basically says who has problems that want them to go away and how can we help them have that happen, because that helps our problems go away at the same time. This is a model of financial security where it says if you have steady income and things constantly coming in, you build your credit, you're on a wise budget, and you pay as you go, and you don't take out a lot of risk and things that are going to be detrimental later, then you start to look at what can you do to protect it with insurance. You start to save for emergencies, you get investments going, you have a place that you own, you start to use your money and your wealth to create more of it, and pretty soon it becomes a self-generating system where you have more coming in than is going out. You donate some, you generate wealth that you can help others with. Financial security is based on taking care of fundamental basics and using fundamental principles and expanding it and then scaling it up. One of the easiest ways to do that, as many people have proven over the years, is by not having one set of incomes from a single job or a single product or a single service, but getting good at something and then repeating it and copying it and scaling it up. So maybe one set of income personally, one set of income professionally, then you collaborate with someone else and do a joint venture, then you do another set of products that is specific to a certain group that you are familiar with and you enjoy. Then maybe there's your hobby or something you love to do that you would do for free just because you enjoy it so much, and all of a sudden people start wanting your consulting. And there's many ways to get different streams of income happening so that if anything ever happens to any one of those sources of income, you always have other backup sources of income to fall back on and make sure that there's always income coming in. This is an interesting model that was learned from working with a wealth management firm many years ago. And one of the things we learned there was almost every financial coach, every financial trainer, every financial guru that you're going to work with is typically focused mostly on how to create wealth, how to make as much wealth as possible, how to invest and get more wealth. Most of their trainings are how to build your wealth, how to get more income, how to get more value. This particular firm, what they specialized in is helping people who already had that value what to do with it. It's quite interesting. It was basically, if you sat down and you looked at, what if I had X million dollars in my accounts and my net worth is X million dollars, or billions, depending on how far you go up the ladder, but let's say the millions and billions space, what do you do with it when you get to be in your 60s? What do you do with it in your 70s? How about your 80s? And we even had clients in their 90s that we did this work with, and it was very interesting because for them, Once you have 40, 50, 60, 80 million dollars, your issue is not necessarily how can I get more of it. Your issue is much more, how do I keep the loved ones around me happy and healthy and prosperous and treating each other well when it comes to dividing it up. It's very interesting. We saw a lot of instances where families were torn apart and whole groups were at each other for years based on how decisions were made of what to do with the money. And so this was kind of a solution for what to do once you have a lot of wealth, how to take care of it. So these were the items that we had someone take care of if they thought that they were terminally ill, if they thought that they were so far in retirement they were never going to do anything again, if they were getting to a place where they had to pass on their wealth and resources to their next generation. One of our projects, we had to pass $500 million to the next generation without causing any difficulties in the family. And so we were charged with two things. One was to take the legacy of the owner and pass it on and teach the philosophy and the wisdom so that the family could have it. And the other was to figure out how to give people X million dollars without changing their lives too much and disrupting them. It was very challenging. And what I remember out of it was that we put this map together so that we could share this with other people, because so many people think, I want to win the race, I want to win the race. Well, what happens when you've won the race? Now what do you do? And most people don't ever think they're going to get there. So this is kind of like, what if you only had a few months left to live? What would you make sure you have? First and foremost, we make sure people had a library of all of their favorite documents, their words, their poetry, their writings, their songs, anything they've recorded, their wisdom, their photos, their videos, any type of media that they could pass on to their family of their wisdom. That was really the most valuable thing they could share. That's what we were hired to do in this specific case. And it became really powerful to see that this is really the legacy that we all leave behind, is our wisdom. Then there's the legal stuff you have to take care of: your will, power of attorney, insurances, intellectual property contracts, all the stuff that is going to get fought over in the courts. You want to try and clear up as much of that as you can before it becomes necessary to even do it. It's kind of that ounce of prevention, pound of cure thing. Then there's the finance itself. I mean, the cash, the accounts, the revenue, the credit, the investments, all the different things financially, and the actual piles of money that you're going to divide up. And interestingly enough, there's all the things you're going to divide up: the homes, the property, the vehicles, the belongings, the valuables, the pictures of family, ancestors, all the stuff that's really valuable to people. Strangely enough, people will fight more sometimes for that than they will for the money itself, because it has more sentimental value. You know, the particular vehicle that grandpa had, or the blanket that grandma wove, or whatever it is. It's stuff that really means the most to you. And then there's the education, which is the life lessons, your favorite things, all the information you have, everything that you want them to know from your school and your history and your life, and everything that you've kind of been through in your life, the lessons you want to pass on, the education you want to pass on. Then there's all the people around you, the supporters, the guardians, the advisors, the healers, the community, the family. There's everybody in the community that you're going to be sharing this with, and you want to see who's compatible, who has issues with each other, looking at how to create as peaceable a solution as possible. And then I think actually one of the most important things is your dreams and your hopes and what you wanted to share that you wish you had done. Maybe you didn't have time to get back to that last family reunion, or you didn't get a chance to say that person before they passed away, or whatever that is, your favorite holidays. These are your intentions of what you wish could have happened, because maybe there's still time. So interestingly enough, some of the greatest healings and the greatest value we brought to our clients was helping them get really clear on their intentions of, what if you only had this many minutes left? What would you do with those minutes? These are like diamonds. You're sitting here with a pile of diamonds. What would you do with your diamonds? And then finally, when it's all over with, what messages do you want to leave? What messages do you want shared with the community when you pass away? What do you want your last hours to look like, and how do you want your remains to be treated? So it's a very serious, difficult, challenging space, but it was incredibly valuable, and it helped a lot of people. It was quite interesting work. And so I just wanted to share this with you in case you're going through financial issues of any kind. Think into the future a little bit of what will you eventually have when it's all done. If everything goes the way you're planning, then what? Because eventually you don't get to keep it, you have to pass it on. So go ahead and think about how you'd pass it on now and what that would involve, because you still have time to do it. Some of these things take years to do, by the way. I've seen where some of these situations took 10, 15, 20 years for them to come to full fruition. So it's best to think about it as early as you can. This diagram shows a process known as coppicing and is used to multiply plants from several to many. It starts often with cutting some form of plant, in this case a tree, back to its bare essence, and then letting its natural energy grow and multiply into many more offshoots of the original plant. The next step is to ensure everyone has the nutrition they need to keep doing this indefinitely. This is an example of how to prepare your nutrition. What do you have in case the power goes out, you have a snowstorm, something happens where 3 days of some type of local emergency, fire, flood, disaster, social unrest, pandemic, anything you name, do you have 3 days of everything you need so you're not disrupted? That's the first place to start. Super easy, super simple. You can do this in a matter of hours. It's kind of fun and interesting actually because it gives you a really feeling of not only are you progressing, learning stuff, you're feeling more secure. It's just a good feeling to know that you've got kind of everything you need for 3 days. Then once you've done that and you practiced it, you start thinking about what's a longer type of situation. So we're using the rule of 3 again in a reverse way, but now we're going out to 3 weeks. What would that look like if you had some really serious civil unrest? The power was down, the roads were torn up, things were blocked, things were closed. We're starting to head towards pandemic. We've all been through this recently. So what are those 3 weeks of basic stuff that you need to make sure you have everything and you wouldn't need to go shopping or have to go out for anything? This is a level we recommend almost everybody get to. This is very easy to do. Within a couple days, you can have most of this handled. It doesn't take a lot of time and money and energy, but it does require some focused honesty and integrity about who am I, what am I all about, what am I going to share with my loved ones, what do they really want and need. It's a way of getting really honest and figuring out kind of where you're at and what's going to help the most. Then you start moving into the big picture. If we had a really big storm, we got wiped out, there's shortages, there's expensive items that we can't afford anymore, etc., etc. And many people may be feeling this right now. So when you start thinking about longer term preparation, it's good to make sure your 3 days are handled and your 3 weeks are handled because that will give you the foundation for long-term preparedness. Now you're starting to look at bulk items, things that will be around for a long time. You're looking at storage dates and a collection of water and filtration and bigger issues of how do we make sure that we're good, not for a month or two, but for a couple months, maybe even a year. Like what would this really take to make sure that we have everything we need? And this can take some time. This can take a couple months. This can take a big budget. It can take having to learn new things, create new storage, change certain habits, start getting into daily routines where you spend 5 to 10 minutes on upgrading and organizing your materials. And then if you look at the kind of big picture, I don't recommend 10, 20 years of storage and things like that because a lot of items really don't last that long. They're not that good. They don't get better with time. What you want to do is have a system where you're constantly learning harvesting. You're constantly learning forestry, growing, creating, farming, building. This is where you start looking at seeds and planting and renewable harvest every year. And what's going to allow you to make sure you always have food, you always have nutrition, you always have what you need that's repeatable, sustainable, and you can do it over and over and over again. Start with the 3 days, get the 3 weeks handled as soon as you can. Then if you have a chance to get your long-term stuff, great. But just keep working on that, and eventually you'll get better and better at it. These are the different types of nutrition that we're looking at. There's many basics here. You can look at this as a food pyramid and say, have more of these, less of these. There's different types of diets, different types of needs, different types of philosophies. Maybe some of these items you won't partake in. The attempt here is to show you what are your options and sit down and make some wise choices now while you have time to think about it, while things are still relatively simple and easy to do. This is a wheel we created to take a look at what is the easiest type of nutrition to create over and over again based on our 9-star system that we use from Feng Shui. So the easiest and fastest nutrition has always been liquids. Just taking hot water and adding something to it. It can be salt, it can be sugar in the form of carbohydrate, it can be a plant, it can be basic vitamins and minerals. Basically warm liquids, warm nutritious liquids is where to start. So if you look at how to get the main things that everybody needs and the ideal diet for each person, it's good to have everybody sit down and look at what things they want most, what you're willing to actually eat. Because having 5,000 cans of creamed corn isn't going to get you anywhere if you don't like corn. So you want to figure out what are your priorities, what do you like most, and start accumulating them. One thing we recommend a lot is to sit down and kind of look at what do you go through in a normal month, what would you like to go through in a normal month, to start to kind of map out what you would like your dinners and breakfasts and your menus to look like over the next few days, and then expand those out. If you have ideal nutrition along with everything else we've done so far, you have the ability to be long-term sustainable and just keep going no matter what. You've got kind of indefinite preparedness. It's just going to keep always working out one way or the other. If you look at what you can harvest, it depends on the time of year you're looking at this video. So if you're looking at springtime, that's a great time to go gather all the wild things that are now popping out in bright green, and the best time to harvest medicines. A lot of the stuff is really fresh and easy. Summer, you get all the great fruits and all the summer harvest and all the things that are so nice to have there, and maybe you want to store some of those and prepare them for the winter. Fall is really the time to harvest everything and make sure you've got it all for winter, because winter is the most scarce time, and that's when you're left with root crops and things you've stored and things that are left over. And so you want to basically kind of optimize your harvest for year round. You want to make sure you always have something that you're working on that's getting your nutrition to improve all year long. One of the things we suggest is always starting with as much fresh and local as you can, organic obviously if it's available. And the more produce you have in your life, the more simple, fresh, basic things, the easier it is to stay healthy, the easier it is to feed yourself. And the cost is easier to work with as well, because you're getting stuff that doesn't have to be shipped as far, it doesn't have to be processed as much. A lot of processed foods actually cost 10, 20 times as much as a fresh thing because so much has been done to it. So if you can just pick the thing right out of the ground, it saves you time and money and improves your budget. These are things that you can pick in the wild. These are known as wild edibles, and these are very prevalent and common all over the world in forms that people don't always know about. But once you learn your wild edibles, these can go a long way to supplement your diet should there be some type of food shortage of anything that you would normally have. So for example, dandelions, nettles, onions or garlic, asparagus, ferns, violets, Queen Anne's lace, lamb's quarters, watercress, different types of mushrooms. These are all wild edibles that are really easy to find, really easy to access. They're typically pretty plentiful, and once you get to know them, you'll start looking for them everywhere. Now, if we move to what do you actually need, you don't really need all that much. You can live on a very simple diet. There are people who've lived on nothing but warm water and rice and just really simple diets of basic vegetables and things that are really minimal. That doesn't necessarily mean they had the best nutrition, but it means they were able to survive through difficult periods when there wasn't much else. Simple vegetables, simple fruits, basic grains. What you want to make sure is you always have enough vitamins and minerals and basic nutrients to keep your body going, and then you can always expand it and get more stuff, but as long as your basics are covered. So this is an example of the basic vitamins. And then what you want to look at is, if I had an emergency where all of a sudden everything was taken away from me and I found myself in a situation where I didn't have any food, what could I do? One of the easiest ways to start is look around you and see what plants are growing in the area that you can add to warm water. And so this is a simple example of some hot teas, warm teas that you can create very quickly and easily. We've used these for years. We've tested them. We've asked others' expert opinions. We've looked at everything here. So nothing that we're suggesting is going to be harmful, but also be very careful that what you're picking hasn't been sprayed with a pesticide. It's not near a nuclear plant. You know, there's obvious things like this that the plant itself may be harmed because of the environment it's in. So check the environment. But these would be some of the plants we would recommend if you're going to look at basic teas to drink every day. We typically have 3 or 4 of these in a combination every day of the year. The basic spruce plant here is a really simple one. They grow everywhere. They're easy to get a hold of, very nutritious. You have a lot of interesting healings that you can do with this. It's great for your fingernails and hair, and there's a whole bunch of things we can talk about, all the benefits, but to save time in this video, I'm not going to go into all the benefits of each plant. I'm just going to give you these plants would be good to go check out. We'll do a whole other video on all the properties of them, but basically if we go down the list here, you're going to find chamomile is very common, been used very widely for helping people relax for a long time. Echinacea, very good for the immune system. Eucalyptus, great for clearing congestion. We have fennel, which is also a great natural base to almost any tea. Ginger, probably one of the most valuable medicinals in the world, easy to get a hold of everywhere. Ginseng, a very powerful plant, has a lot of properties of healing. Green tea itself, just the basic tea plant. Green tea has been known for thousands of years to have all kinds of healing properties. Very helpful as a base. You can add all kinds of other things to it. Golden seal, one of the most valuable plants for fighting infections and difficulties with your immune system. It's also very rare, so there's a lot of issues around golden seal of harvesting it and is it becoming endangered. Just wanted to say that it is a very great plant, so maybe getting it to where it can be harvested off of a farm, maybe it can be grown, maybe it can be created and cultivated so there's more of it. One of the top trainers in the military used to say that if he could only have one plant, he would use this plant called lemon balm mint. It's a very helpful plant, can cure a lot of different issues and help with different ailments. This is known as lemon balm mint and is one of the most helpful plants as far as healing and nutrition goes. It's a great plant to take. Often have it with you whenever you're traveling. It allows you to have a lot of benefits and really smells nice and is very pleasant to be around. Very helpful plant called lemon balm mint. Lemongrass has been used to make soups and sauces in Asia for a long time. Very powerful medicinal properties as well. Great tasting, and if you like it, it's good to have it every day. This is licorice root. It has been used for a long time to not only flavor things, but to help people heal breathing issues, deal with a lot of congestion. It's a very good plant to have around, and it makes some of the other plants easier to take. This is known as a mallow. This is a very good plant for breathing issues and congestion. It is growing typically in marshes, and that's why it's called marshmallow, which is actually where marshmallow originally sort of got its name. But the marshmallow is very good for a lot of different properties to help you heal basic things with your lungs and tissues like that. Nettles are one of the most nutritious of the wild edibles, easily found, very, very high in nutrients. If you have a moment, go check out nettles. Go research them a little bit, and you'd be amazed at how much properties they have and how easy they are to gather. One of the most easily accessed superfoods in the world. Redwood foliage, along with any of the conifers, typically has very high levels of vitamin C, very good at helping you ward off winter colds and flus and things like that. We used to work a lot with natural medicine doctors, and one of the things they would always give their clients when they first walked in was red tea from a plant called rooibos. Rooibos is a very powerful medicine plant that can make a wonderful tea. It's great to take every day and is very useful for helping a lot of different issues. Slippery elm is an amazing plant as far as congestion and breathing issues. When you get a chance, check out slippery elm. You'll find it is in almost all of the herbal tea combinations, and it's a very helpful plant. Any of the pine trees can be used nutritionally for the most part, but certain ones are a little better than others. And so if you look at which pine trees grow locally in your area, one of the favorite drinks that we have is called pine needle tea, and it's very high in vitamin C. It's an amazing pick-me-up in the winter, and you can have it all year round, even if there's 6 feet of snow on the ground. So when you get a chance, see if you can experience pine needle tea and see what you think about it. There are so many types of vegetables and fruits that can be juiced, and all of them have amazing health properties. When you start to combine them in different combinations, you can really make your life easier, faster, better, and watch your health increase with just simple drinks, because you're getting the two most valuable substances in the world. You're getting water, and you're getting all the vitamins, minerals, and nutrition straight away. It's easy to digest. So anytime you can juice things, it helps a lot. And the idea of making sure whatever you have is fresh and you juice it, you can get that nutrition right away. And if it's a time of year where you're not able to find as much fresh produce, or it's difficult to get to areas where it's located, you can dry things and powder them and have them all year round. This is an example of a commercially made one, but you can take any type of fruit or vegetable, turn it into a drink powder, and give yourself all the nutrition that you need, especially when you're traveling, especially when you're out on the road and you don't have access to things. You can just make yourself a quick glass of this and give yourself the nutrition that you need in a matter of minutes. If more time and resources are available, then you can move to a full balanced diet with as many superfoods as possible. The optimal situation is getting as many nutritious things in your diet as you can and taking them daily. One of the fastest, easiest ways to maintain nutrition is high nutrient liquids in the form of bouillon, soups, sauces, and spices. So any of these types of liquids are really fast and easy to prepare. All you need is hot water plus a few simple ingredients. This is porridge, which can be ground rice or corn or any of the basic grains, and you heat it up with a little bit of salt and pepper or basic spices, and you can create huge amounts of nutrition at very low cost and very little time. So people have been eating porridge forever. Any type of soup like this, it's simple and quick and easy, is also easy to digest typically as well. This is a range of spices that you can add to it. So if you take your basic grains and your basic seeds, your basic shoots and sprouts, and you start to add them to hot water along with any of these spices, you can come up with a huge variety of soups at very low cost, very high nutrition, and very easy for your whole family to be able to prepare. So even kids can make this type of stuff. This is an example of a mixed spice that we make where we take salt and pepper and garlic and onion and put it all together in one. That way when we're traveling, we don't have to carry a whole bunch of different containers of spices. We just carry that one container and everybody has one. And so you can basically just add this to your food and it makes cooking fast and easy and nutritious all at the same time. And you could customize your own spice blends of whatever you like. This is an example of an optimal nutrition soup. Wild rice is one of the most nutritious foods in the world, and you can take and combine that with basic vegetables, and you've got something you can live off of for years and years and years. With a simple bag of wild rice, some basic root vegetables, and some salt, you can almost go indefinitely just off of that. All you need is add a few other things to make up for the nutrients that you need in addition to this. But these are examples of things that you can really live for a long time off of very little, and then you can use your resources for all the other things you need. You don't have to worry about a large food budget. If you were to look around the world and say, what's the one thing I would want to store the most of that I don't have to worry about it spoiling, one of the things would be honey. They've actually dug up honey from the Great Pyramids of Egypt thousands of years later, and it's still edible. So if you look at honey and it's stored well, it can go indefinitely. And so imagine if you have 5, 6, 7 jars of this stored for years in large containers, you're never really going to run out of sweet things for people in your group. And so now you start looking at using it for trade and barter. The amazing thing about honey is that it happens to be really good medicinally as well. It can be used on wounds. It can treat a lot of different conditions. So having a lot of extra honey and a couple other basics like this is a really good idea to make sure you always have the nutrition you need. Even if prices get out of control, even if there are shortages, this is a great way to make sure that you've got what you need for many years. Some of the simplest plants on the earth are also the most nutritious. So we're going to walk through a few here that are pretty simple and easy. This is chlorella, a very simple plant that grows in water. This is kelp that grows in the ocean. We have several different types of seaweed here, which are easy to find and harvest all over the world on the coasts. This is spirulina, which is used in making powders and superfood drinks. There's many foods like this that are really simple and quick and easy and can be ground up and taken as a powder and added to everything else that you have. There are also many other types of seeds, sprouts, and nuts that are nutrient dense, such as acorns, bamboo shoots, cattails, especially their pollen. These are chia seeds, flax seeds, pumpkin seeds. This is a series of mixed seeds that if you were to take some of these and soak them in water, you would not only get the seed, but you would get the sprout as well. And you can take a bag of seeds and turn it into several pounds of sprouts if you're looking at how to extend your food budget in a time that's challenging for supply chain issues. There are many types of nuts. These happen to be walnuts, garbanzo beans, also known as chickpeas. There's so many types of beans available. This is a simple dish of kidney beans, but you could substitute any numbers of the types of beans that exist in the world for a basic diet, and then you can add all the extra things to it when you're able to get those type of extras. Lentil beans have fed people for thousands of years all over the world. Potatoes are considered staples in many countries of the world and are easy to grow and reproduce. These are examples of different types of rice. Wild rice, as we mentioned, is one of the most nutritious foods that you can get a hold of. If you don't use animal products, you can skip the next few seconds. We've included a few animal-based items here, and we'll set a marker here for you so that you can see where to skip to. Butter has been a mainstay all over the world and continues to be. Eggs and other types of simple proteins are very valuable. Many types of freshwater fish are easy to catch and process and cook and require a minimal amount of effort. Various types of animal fat are useful for cooking. This happens to be pork because it is one of the most nutritious of all the fats. Any type of meat can be dried and preserved for later. This happens to be salmon and is one of our favorites. Many studies have been done on longevity around the world, and one of the interesting findings in several of them was what people had in common who lived to be the oldest. And one of the variables they found that was the highest was cultures who eat the most yogurt. So yogurt and other forms of probiotics are very helpful for creating a bacteria in our gut and creating a nutrition that allows us to defend ourselves against the various microbes and viruses and forms of bacteria that are harmful. So the more of the probiotics you have, the less of the harmful biotics that can get to you. And so there's nothing like having a little bit of yogurt to start every day with. If you happen to be vegetarian or vegan and don't do any type of meat, one of the nice hybrids between the plant and animal world is the mushroom. These happen to be king oyster mushrooms and are amazingly delicious and quite nutritious. These are regular oyster mushrooms and can be found all over and are easy to use and make it fun for the kids to find and learn how to discover them and harvest them and process them and eat them themselves. Portobello mushrooms are used as a mainstay in restaurants all over the world and are easy to grow and harvest and have a sustainable form of nutrition just with this type of mushroom. Shiitake are a Japanese variety of mushroom that has been used the world over as a high form of nutrition and are very good medicinally. Many naturopathic doctors and healers recommend shiitake mushrooms to all their clients. Many of us heard the expression, eat your vegetables growing up. There are many reasons for that. They are high in nutrition, antioxidants, they are easy to grow, easy to harvest, and easy to store, and most of all come in a wide variety that can make it so that they are available almost any time of the year. Here are some examples of some of the most nutritious vegetables. Beet greens, broccoli, burdock, dandelion. Both its flowers and its greens are edible. The greens make a nice salad, the roots can make a tea, and the flowers are delicious, especially if they're batter fried, much like a fried mushroom or a fried onion. If you've never tried batter fried dandelions, please give them a try. They're one of our favorites. Kale, considered by some the most nutritious plant on earth. Leeks, also known as wild onions. Moringa, amazing superfood and medicinal food. Spinach. All you have to do is watch an old Popeye cartoon and find out what he eats. Swiss chard. Wild onion, also known as ramsons. Avocado. When looking at foods that babies can eat when first starting out, quite often After mother's milk, avocado mashed up is one of the easiest things to start children on that is most nutritious. And finally, we come to the fruits. There are many types of fruit available, and they can make a great addition to any set of grains and vegetables and basic nutrition by adding a whole bunch of extra layers of taste, flavor, vitamins, minerals, sugars, and making our world a little brighter and more fun. Blackberries. One of the most nutritious fruits is blueberries. Guavas are super high nutrition. Hawthorn berries. Jujube, also known as Chinese dates. Kiwi. Lemon, orange, grapefruit, or any type of citrus. Prickly pear cactus fruits. Rose hips. Bearberry. Wild strawberry. Goji berries. A great way to make sure you have food for a long time is to dry it and preserve it. This is a typical food dehydrator and is very easy to use and can produce immense amounts of food for the wintertime. Here we have a nice variety of dried fruits that you can snack on all year long. Fruits can be gathered and harvested when they're easily available and plentiful. They are at their lowest cost and you can get them in bulk. You can then process them, dry them, and turn them into fruit leathers for enjoyment all year round. There are many types of dehydrated foods. Almost any food can be dehydrated and stored for a long time. These are just some examples of ones that exist in the world already prepackaged. This is an example of a pre-made meal ready to eat, but you can take any type of food, dehydrate it, package it, combine it, and make your own for a fraction of the cost. This is a classic way to preserve fruits and vegetables and any type of food. It is known as canning, and what it does is it takes the food, mixes it up, processes it, puts it into a jar, seals it, and then it is put into hot water to where it is made sure that it is completely sealed, and this will maintain shelf life for many years. A great way to store canned food is to put it in a system where you insert the newest cans at the back and they roll down so that you take out the oldest ones in the front, known as a system of rotation. There are many forms of this, and you can create anything to where you keep using your oldest food first. That way it's sustainable and ongoing. This whole system of the delightful dozen is meant to be used every day, starting with the area that's most important first, and then repeated over and over. The only time it needs to be adjusted is if safety itself is a concern, and it's become necessary to get everyone to safety if something is threatening where you're currently at. When getting from one location to another, a few simple tips and tools will help you get there safer and more effectively. One is having a compass and knowing the 8 cardinal directions. No matter where you're at in the world, always starting from center is a great practice, and then being able to determine which way is north and south, you can then decide which way is going to be the safest to head. These 8 directions can be found whether day or night, depending on your level of skill set. Daytime, it's quite easy to tell whether the sun just came up, because that would be the east, and if it's setting at the horizon, that's going to be west. Midday is the only challenge, which is where magnetic compasses come in and make it helpful to use them. At nighttime, based on your understanding of the stars and the planets, you can locate yourself easily based on the large and small dipper, which points to Polaris, also known as the North Star. There are many classes and offerings out there teaching navigation in a simple form. Even spending 5 to 10 minutes with your family figuring out how to find true north, whether day or nighttime, is a very valuable experience. The most basic way to get from where you are to somewhere safer is taking a vehicle that is completely fueled up and figuring out what gear to take with you. This is an example of a vehicle that's fully fueled and is not only ready to travel on the roads, but also ready to travel on the waterways. So whether you're getting there through land navigation or water navigation, you're all set to go no matter what the conditions are. The reason we haven't included air travel here is because if it's a time of actual emergency, quite often air is very difficult and requires private aircraft. If you happen to have access to private aircraft, that is a whole other discussion around travel, but we are looking just at basics today. So the idea here is, what can you do to get from where you are to your safe place as quickly and easily as possible? This is starting with the most common everyday solutions. If, however, a situation where the roads are blocked and something else is preventing you from getting there with the normal routes, alternative transportation may be necessary, and creative solutions will be needed to get where you're going. One of the greatest hikers in the world, Colin Fletcher, often talked about how the only thing you really need to get from here to there is a good pair of shoes. We would tend to agree with him, and making sure you have the right gear with you is also helpful, and in today's world might include a standard mountain bike. You could also move to the level of an electric bike that can help you get where you're going, even if the route is hilly or mountainous, and the ability to recharge your vehicle would be critical in this setting. If we look back in time, people managed to use the waterways for thousands of years in lightweight canoes. If snow and ice are part of the journey, a good pair of snowshoes, whether traditional or modern, is helpful. No matter what gear you take with you on your travels, it's important that you know how to drive it, that you're familiar with all the ins and outs of navigation, and that everyone in your party would be able to use it if necessary if one of you became incapacitated. So even having your children drive around the block, even having the little ones go out on expeditions with bikes, skateboards, and various types of equipment becomes valuable over time, because at some point they may be the one driving the vehicle, taking you to the emergency place when no one else is available. And the earlier they can learn it, and the more often they can learn it, the more comfortable they'll be. If you've watched this far in the video, you're probably like us and are committed 100% to making sure you and your loved ones thrive. We'd like to recap the whole system here to make it easy for you to watch this over and over, and just take these 2 minutes to repeat if you need to see the whole system in a nutshell. To recap, the basic system that we have can be summarized like this. Everyone in your group is wise enough to know where to start with. They're safe. They're breathing well. They're sheltered. They're energized. They're maintaining their core temperature. They're fully hydrated. They're healthy. They're using their skills and abilities optimally. They know their next steps. They have the tools to be, have, and do it. They have the resources to be, have, and do it. They are receiving optimal nutrition, and they are able to navigate and get to a better location if necessary. What we suggest is that you and your loved ones watch this as many times as necessary to get clear on your priorities, decide what's most purposeful for you, make a clear and compelling vision for yourselves of what you want your lives to become, and create a shared strategy that you will actually be able to live it. While this may seem overwhelming and difficult at first, it gets much easier each minute you do it. We recommend that you do it as many minutes a day as you can so that it gets easier and easier. One of the secrets that we've found is turning it into a game, making it fun. If this feels like we have to do it or we should do it, we often resist it. If we love it, if we enjoy it, and we practice it constantly, it becomes real. There are many games and fun activities that can be built into this. Here are just a few. Imagine your life as one big game and start to get clear on what winning it would look like, and most importantly, how great that's going to feel. We like to turn this into a game so that it's fun to play every day, and we learn it faster and easier every time we play it. If you'd like, please download our free template called the Life Game and print one out so you and your loved ones can create your own game pieces and play it often. It's the basic 9 areas of life broken into the 9 sections. So if you took each area and then made each area cut up pieces of that area. So for example, in the health area, there's 9 sections just of health. There's the wealth of health, the image of health, the relationships of health, the basics of health, the health of health, the projects of health, wisdom of health, the career of health, and the giving and receiving help, travel area of health. All those 9 areas of the main system are within each area. So as you're traveling around, you can look at which area of each section do I need to focus on today. And the way we do it is we take a game piece that represents us. We might find a statue, a rock, an acorn, a feather, anything that you feel is most powerful for you, and use it as your game piece. And then just set it on the game board each day in the area that you want to focus on for that day. And that will show you and your group exactly what's important to you and how you can help each other in the minimal amount of time and effort. And then you can turn it into all kind of other games after that, but that's just a really simple one that we play every day. If you take this and you turn it into a game of flashcards and fun and activities, it becomes a lifestyle. It becomes a way of being that you just naturally start to see your life improve all the time. One of the things we found is that to sit here and listen to it, to be lectured to be explained to watch diagrams or videos, or listen to podcasts or read books, it's all fine, it's all good information. But to really actually practice it, to really learn it, the fastest way we found to learn anything is to turn it into a song. So if you take any of this and you think of it as a song and hum it and sing it, it's the fastest way to learn anything. The art of Ayurveda is often taught through songs and what they call mantras. And so if you can learn 60, 70, 80 years of stuff in 1 year, that's the goal. And that's what we're doing here. We've given you the lecture version, the video version. You can watch this as often as you want, but we suggest that you really get into it and turn it into something that means something to you. Find a poem, a drawing, a painting, get all of your favorite things together. And if you can create some type of a song that you can sing over and over again, that's really the fastest way to learn it. Make it easy to use over and over again. Then, even if you don't turn it into a song or that everybody sings it, even just learning how to play some basic chords, even just learning how to play one song of any kind can be fun and healing and cheer you up when things get really difficult. The most powerful thing you can do in any emergency is to be inspired. So turning these different tips and techniques into flashcards and practicing them daily, you might have one set of flashcards just for nutrition, you might have one for medical, you might have one for wealth, whatever's most important to you. Find a deck of cards and play it often and make it into something that you just want to play and use over and over, and that will speed up your time of learning it and getting good at it in a fraction of the time it would have been. The other thing we recommend is finding different sports that you enjoy and using them to practice some of these skills. So how can you use these in martial arts? How can you use these in soccer, frisbee, baseball, basketball, football, cycling, canoeing, camping, any sport? Let yourself start to practice it, not just to have fun, but also to improve these skills and abilities at the same time. When you give yourself different scenarios and challenges, start with small and easy ones and then let them grow. We suggest you try and make a fire in your backyard, camp out for a night, go without food, go without communication, turn off the phone. Give yourself some type of challenge. It's an artificial challenge, but it's what you would experience in the real situation. But do it all in your backyard so that if things don't work out, you make mistakes, you just come home and everything's fine. So give yourself a chance to practice these things in small, easy steps and give yourself challenges. And what would we do if we had a fire? Where would we meet? Who would we call? What would be these scenarios? And play them out and live them, and you'll find out there's all kinds of things you hadn't thought of. We did this with a group one time. They were experts and been doing this stuff for years. They knew all kinds of things. And we took them out and we did a simple thing. We said, we're going to go from this place to this place, and it's 3 miles. Our vehicles aren't working. We've got to do it on foot. Everybody grab your bag and let's go for 3 miles. And it was amazing to see how many people couldn't even carry their gear 3 miles. That's because they were out of shape. They hadn't packed it well. They'd never experienced the type of clothing. They didn't know how to actually do it because they'd only imagined it. What it showed was how to go with lighter weight, how to exercise more often, how to share things differently among the group. It taught them so many things, just that one exercise. It was only like a 3-day, 4-day experience for the whole set of skills, but we basically taught them 2-3 years worth of skills in 3 or 4 days. So what we're sharing here is that you can do any of the stuff that you want. It's just a matter of what are you willing to be, have, and do to make sure your loved ones are safe and thrive through anything. We've created a list of resources in the description down below that will help you get started. And most importantly, have fun with this and help the ones you love the most. We sincerely wish you blessings on your thriving and success. To borrow a military phrase, it's go time! That means the green light is on, it's time to go. Whatever you need to do, go do it. To borrow a military phrase, it's go time. That means we've watched a red light for years, we've been worried about this yellow light, now the green light just blinked and it's time to go. We want to leave you and your loved ones with this. When things matter most, it's not always the model of ready, aim, fire. What we found is most successful is more like ready, start, and then aim. So whatever helps you get started today, that's our wish for you, is that you start down this path so that you and your loved ones thrive no matter what.
I want to play in the world game. I want to make it better than it's ever been before. I want to play in the world game. I want to make sure everybody knows the score about using less, doing so much more. Everywhere I'm going I see trouble. Everywhere I'm looking I see all kinds of pain. Maybe we can get back on the double. Maybe we can turn around and make it all change. They say it's you against your neighbor. If it gets right down to it, you against your friend. I swear that this is not the answer. As far as I can see, it is the way it all ends. I want to play in the world game. I want to make it better than it's ever been before. I want to play in the world game. I want to make sure everybody knows the score about using less, doing so much more. Hey man, you know me, I don't worry. Hey man, you know me, I am never afraid. Only one thing can make me sorry. Something to say and then it never gets said. What kind of man turns on his brother? What kind of man would turn his back on a friend? Who has the right to say it's over? Who has the right to see how far it can bend? I want to play in the world game. I want to make it better than it's ever been before. I want to play in the world game. I want to make sure everybody knows the score about using less, doing so much more. Yahweh, 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 Jah. Yahweh, 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 Jah. Yahweh.